Chapter 335. As expected of Peng Liyun. When Lu Qing finally saw the light of victory, he was instantly turned around and ushered in the arrival of failure. Strong depression filled Lu Cheng's heart. If he had not held on to hope, he would not be so upset and self-reproach now. How pure the joy was just now was how painful the pain was now. More than 4 months of patience, more than 4 months of bitter training, more than 4 months of anticipation. In the end, all came to naught and turned into flowing water. What a joke. I had promised Ke that I would teach Peng Liyun an unforgettable lesson together with Lin Quebec. I wanted to suppress his willpower, affect his confidence in winning, and slow down his speed of breaking through to the inhuman stage. I wanted to preserve my hope for next year's finals. But now, I had been slapped in the face. I didn't have the face to face my parents anymore. Perhaps it was fortunate that I was a low-key person, and had only said such words in front of Ke. Otherwise, who knew how much ridicule and sarcasm would have come from all directions? If I had been the first to fight, defeated Feng Zhirong with the advantage of the wrong position, and challenged Peng Liyun in peak condition, my brother-in-law would have had a chance to defeat this monster, right? If I had not been so anxious just now, not been scared by Peng Liyun's ease, not hurried to use the variant version of severe warning, and not relied on my abnormal physical strength and the replenishment of Jindan to grind for a while, would things have been different? When a person encountered a setback, it was hard to restrain himself from thinking that if he had made a different choice at that time, or if he had done better in some details, the result would have been different. Lu Qing was no exception. But the more he thought about it, the more upset and painful he felt, and even a little bit angry at himself. Taking a breath, he visualized the ice mirror, and put away all his thoughts. Lu Qing nodded to Peng Liyun, who was gasping for breath, and turned around, walking towards the stone steps. His muscles were still trembling, his internal organs were extremely uncomfortable, and there was a salty taste of rust in his throat, as if he was preparing to spit out blood. Not only did he lose, but he also suffered a serious internal injury. Lu Qing sighed secretly and shook his head bitterly. At this moment, the Shanbei students in the stands suddenly started to applaud, from sparse to enthusiastic, from noisy to orderly, for the wonderful fight just now, and also for the admirable opponent Lu Qing. You walked out of the arena with your head held high. As the applause echoed, Yin Xiaoling suddenly burst into tears. She was moved by everyone's recognition of Lu Qing, but she was also sad about the previous loss. Lu Qing had played so well, so why did they let him lose? The cruelty of a match was that most of the time, and in this match, the winner was Peng Liyun. Listening to his opponent's applause, Lu Qing exhaled a sigh of relief, but the depression and pain in his heart. Halfway through their journey, they met Li Mao. He forced a smile, extended his right hand, and high-fived Li Mao. Really? Maybe he's already at his limit, and wants me to take advantage of him? Do your best. Lu Qing didn't say much. He nodded and walked past Li Mao to the seats. Yin Zhike, dressed in white, walked up to him. The girl's eyes were a little red. She bit her lower lip and said firmly, "You fought very well. Even if you lost, I'm proud of you." If it were others, Lu Qing wouldn't be in the mood to respond. But he couldn't treat Coach Yin like that. He smiled bitterly and said, "I hope next time you can say you fought very well, or you are so good." You fought very well meant that you lost the battle but made a respectable performance. You fought very well meant that you won the match to your heart's content. Yes. Yin Zhike nodded hard. She knew that Lu Qing didn't want to hear comforting words, so she reached out and held his palm, silently trying to pass her warmth to him. If someone shared the pain, would it be less painful? Yin Zhike supported Lu Qing to sit down, lost in thought. Listening to the applause from the computer, Chu Hui, who was wearing a tuxedo and a top hat, turned pale. He was no longer in high spirits at the beginning. Are these two guys still King human? If it was Peng Liyun, I could accept it. He had been strong for more than 2 years. It was not unacceptable that he became a monster who was close to the inhuman level. Anyway, I was used to losing to him. I didn't even think about winning against Shanbei. However, it had only been 4 months. How did Lu Qing become so powerful that people could only look up at him? How did he suddenly become so strong? I thought he had a chance to defeat me. How can I fight him? How can I fight next week? Chu Hui turned his head and looked at Luo Hei's, Yin Xiangxi and the other team members. He saw that they were all scared. Some were dull, some were confused, and some were trembling. The gap is so big that I don't want to catch up. Chu Hui looked back painfully and saw the close-up of Lu Cheng. He noticed that something was wrong with him. He was suddenly happy and blurted out, Lu Cheng is injured. And it was not the kind of injury that could be healed quickly. I knew very well how terrible Peng Liyun's Thunder Force combined with a simplified physical invulnerability move was. I had been hit by it without any protection, and had to recuperate for nearly 2 months. Lu Cheng's physical quality was much better than mine. But Peng Liyun was not what he used to be. Without half a month's rest, Lu Cheng would not be able to recover. Lu Cheng is injured? Luo Hei's, Yin Xiangxi and the others were startled, and asked with hidden joy. Yes. Look at his current state. Pay attention to the replay later. See if he was hit directly by Peng Liyun's Thunder Seal. Chu Hui felt lucky and ecstatic as if he had just escaped from death. And Lin Ke was also hit by Dark Poison Force. He probably won't be able to fight in his best state next week. Haha, I don't know what they are thinking. They clearly know that there is a big gap between them and Shanbei. Why do they still fight so hard? Isn't it convenient for us? I think we should pay tribute to their martial arts spirit, and then enjoy this gift. In the midst of the ridicule, the Martial Arts Club of Sanjiang College confirmed Lu Cheng's situation through the slow-motion replay. They immediately released their accumulated depression and fear, and became excited again. Our chance has come. Thank Lu Cheng and Lin Ke for their martial arts spirit and hard work. In the office of the Martial Arts Club of Capital College, Chen Digua, Shen Yu, Jiang Kongchan and the others were staring at the projection blankly, forgetting to speak and forgetting other things. The atmosphere was strangely quiet. For a moment, they thought Peng Liyun would lose. But unexpectedly, Lu Cheng, who had fought to such an extent, still failed to defeat the god's favored one. After dozens of seconds, Chen Digua broke the silence with a wry smile. Shaoli, what level do you think Peng Liyun has reached? Runli pondered and answered. He is 1 step away from the inhuman stage. 1 step away from the inhuman stage. Shenyu, Jiang Kongchan and the others chewed on these words, feeling lost and awed. Renli's naturally hanging hands unconsciously clenched into fists. In front of the computer screen, Brahmin let go of her hands that were pulling her braid, letting a few crystal-clear teardrops slide down her face and fall to the floor. She clicked open the forum and posted a post. Ooh, why, he fought so well. Why did you let him lose? Rub your head. It's good enough for him to fight like this, much better than I expected. I thought Lu Cheng would at most be at the level of a strong 7th, so I was afraid that he would lose to Peng Liyun, which would affect his confidence. Unparalleled Dragon King comforted Brahmin. 55555, I won't listen, I won't listen, I won't listen. I just want him to win. My heart aches when I see him like this. Brahmin sent a covering ears and shaking head emoji. Nyechichi also sent a crying face emoji. I know it's good enough for him to fight with Peng Liyun like this. No, it's very good, but I can't help but feel sad. Woo. You girls, why are you all so fragile? Do you need the uncle to comfort you? You don't care about your heart, but your kidneys. Okamoto's fan joked and then sighed. I won't say anymore, I can't make it up anymore. I'm going to smoke a cigarette to calm down. Hey, think about the gap between Lu Cheng and Peng Liyun half a year ago, and look at the gap now. You should be able to let it go, right? Road to the Arena said. Damn, Lu Cheng lost to Peng Liyun, who is at least a level stronger than him, and you are all so sad. When I was defeated by him, who had no rank, should I have jumped off a building? Fortunately, Lu Cheng has been advancing by leaps and bounds, so losing to him has become an interesting topic, not a disgrace, at this time. Many cats suddenly replied. We know rationally that you are right, but we still cry out loud. In the live broadcast room of the video website, the guest commentator Zhang Hejing sighed with emotion. Wonderful. Wonderful. This match makes me want to move my old arms and legs. Lu Cheng is strong, Peng Liyun is stronger, the younger generation will surpass us in time. The host echoed. Yeah, I didn't expect Lu Qing to push Peng Liyun to this point. It seems that he is reaching his limit. Reaching his limit? No, Peng Liyun is just a little overloaded for a short time, but it doesn't mean that he has no strength to fight anymore. Hey, if Lu Qing hadn't fought hard at the end, maybe we wouldn't have seen him in his overloaded state. Zhang He couldn't help but sigh. At the stage where you're advancing by leaps and bounds, at the age where you're at your most high-spirited, it's very sad and regrettable to meet such an opponent who can firmly suppress you. You mean Peng Liyun is stronger than what he showed just now? The host was stunned. Zhang Hezheng nodded slightly and said, he is enjoying the match, not trying to win. I don't need to say more about the difference between the two, right? In other words, Peng Liyun is the strongest at the last moment? The host suddenly realized and asked. You can say that. Zhang Hezheng sighed. Is this the god's favored son who aims to reach physical invulnerability? When I was at the peak of 6th pin, I was not so strong. While they were talking, the bullet screen refreshed one by one. It seemed that no one was paying attention to the battle between Li Mao and Peng Liyun. I have to say that Lu Qing is really strong. He can fight with Peng Liyun to this extent after only practicing martial arts for more than a year. I'm on my knees watching. He is so tough that no one has a friend. He is indeed a candidate for the god's favored son. And he is more promising than others. After many positive affirmations of Lu Qing, someone looked into the future and said, I can't imagine what level Lu Qing will reach in half a year or a year. Will he be able to surpass Peng Liyun? This sentence suddenly stirred up a hornet's nest and attracted a group of people to attack. Surpass Lu Zai? Ha, what a joke. As if Lu Zai won't improve. He will enter the inhuman level soon. How can a guy who relies on his supernatural ability and ancestral chromosomes be compared with Peng Liyun? Didn't you listen to the commentary? Just now Lu Zai didn't use his full strength at all. Well, he didn't use his full strength and he fell down. Tisk tsk, if you have the ability to fight again, Peng Liyun just had a few moves with Lin Quebec. If it's a one-on-one battle, Lu Qing will be beaten to a pulp. Are you done yet? I'm just speculating based on the facts. Lu Qing has improved from an ordinary person to a fighter close to professional 6th pin, or even weaker than professional 6th pin, after practicing martial arts for 1 year and 2 months. Give him another half a year or a year, who knows how far he can go. Haha, I'm not laughing at him. Such a large span of improvement never lasts too long. And the higher he goes, the more difficult it is. Lu Qing's speed of improvement will inevitably slow down. If he can enter the inhuman level within a year, I will live broadcast eating *T. Yes, Lu Qing is very powerful and a genius, but if you want to compare with Peng Liyun, then I will answer you with a line from a comic. Trash, you are not good enough. Go to hell and eat *T. I wonder if Lu Qing will lose confidence after being beaten by Lu Zai. Just now I found that he was desperate. And a fighter without confidence is a salted fish. And it is difficult for him to improve again. The argument on the internet was very fierce. After the game, I wanted to see the bullet screen to see how they praised Lu Qing's Brahmin. So hateful. I want to beat them. I want to quarrel with them. On the live arena, the battle between Li Mao and Peng Liyun had begun. The latter did not turn away directly, and left the opportunity of actual combat to Su Wanyan. Instead, he gave the greatest respect to his opponent, adjusted his breath, took a stance, and let him attack. This was the most hardy game Li Mao had ever played. 24 blizzard strikes was one move after another. The more he fought, the fiercer and crazier he became. There was almost no stagnation and no pause. Bang! He threw the most powerful punch he had ever thrown since he started practicing martial arts. He felt an incomparable sense of comfort. Peng Liyun swung his waist and abdomen, and raised his arms to block accurately, not moving an inch. Li Mao was about to attack again, but suddenly he felt that his body was empty and had no strength to continue. Unconsciously, he had finished one round of 24 blizzard strikes. Looking at Peng Liyun, who was panting in front of him, Li Mao laughed at himself and said, "Thank you. Thank you for your help." After that, he turned and walked out of the arena without waiting for the referee's announcement. He sighed slightly without regret or loss. The referee raised his right hand and said, Round 4, Peng Liyun wins. Shanbei University wins this game. In the home team seats, Su Wanyan waved his fist happily, feeling that he had escaped a disaster, and did not have to face the monster who could bounce back Corvine mouth. Feng Zhirong's eyes were gloomy and not very happy. He was brooding about his loss to Lin Quebec. On the other side of Songqing University, when Li Mao came back, they high-fived each other and returned to the locker room in silence. Lu Cheng, who was holding Yan Zhika's hand, turned around subconsciously and looked at the arena. He saw Peng Liyun standing there, applauding to the crowd. The lights fell and covered him with a layer of golden brilliance. Lu Cheng withdrew his gaze, closed his eyes and entered the locker room. On the way back, the members of the martial arts club were silent. Kai Zhongming wanted to break the silence several times, but when the words came to his mouth, he was not in the mood to say them. Mu Jinyan and Yan Shaoling sat in the back row, looking at the silent Lin Quebec. They felt sorry for him and wanted to say something to comfort him, but in the end, they did not do so. Lu Cheng and Yan Zhika snuggled up to each other. Smelling the familiar fragrance and feeling the warmth that made them relax, they calmed down a lot and slowly got over it. Look, many people on the internet are praising you. Yan Zhika happened to read some comments on Weibo, and saw the praise at the beginning. She quickly handed the phone to Lu Cheng with an expression that said, "Praise me." Lu Cheng read the comments one by one. Seeing that everyone was praising his strength and admiring the brilliance of the previous matches, a smile gradually appeared on his face. Yan Zhika also moved her head closer to him and read the comments together with him. From time to time, she slightly raised her white and delicate chin, revealing a sense of pride. But when Lu Cheng turned to the section where he compared himself with Peng Liyun, he found all kinds of ridicule, such as relying on supernatural ability and ancestral chromosomes, losing confidence after being beaten, and not enough, and a candidate is just a candidate. His temples twitched and his heart was filled with anger. He wanted to prove something, wanted to argue about right and wrong, but sadly found that the loser had no excuse. Only victory could counterattack everything. Yan Zhika bit her lips tightly, and her clear eyes were burning with anger, which made her look even brighter. She suppressed her anger, and did not want to infect her boyfriend with this emotion. She reached out her finger to stop the discussion, and pretended to be rational. Cheng, don't care about them. Some people are just bad for the sake of being bad. Okay. Lu Cheng wanted to turn around and comfort Coach Yan, but suddenly saw a long Weibo post from all-knowing man in ganghood, a well-known martial arts influencer. This defeat has more advantages than disadvantages for Lu Cheng. Huh. Why did he say that? Not only Lu Cheng, but also Yan Zhika was quite curious and quickly clicked to read. It is foreseeable that Lu Cheng will enter a period of slow improvement. Why do I say that? Everyone can see that every time Lu Cheng's strength rises, it is accompanied by the awakening of supernatural ability. It is obvious that the awakening of supernatural ability will greatly improve the quality of the body. Of course, the premise is that there is no obstacle in the realm. That is to say, if one does not enter the Dan stage, the strength of the body will not change qualitatively even if the supernatural ability is awakened. Lu Cheng had the strength of a quasi-7th fighter when he just entered the Dan stage. He relied on his abnormal physical strength and the practice of the Frost Force in advance. He improved from a quasi-7th fighter to a weak 6th fighter in a little more than 4 months, because of the second awakening of the dual supernatural abilities of ice and fire, and the honeymoon period, when he formally entered the Dan stage. Now this period has passed, and we all know that the awakening of supernatural ability is more difficult than the previous one. Lu Cheng will not have this kind of bonus in 1 or 2 years. In this way, it is foreseeable that the speed of improvement of his strength will slow down. By April next year, he can expect to improve from a weak 6th fighter to an ordinary 6th fighter after he has mastered more ice sect moves and related combat experience. The gap between him and Peng Liyun will be further widened, and this speed will accompany him for a long time. Whether he can enter the inhuman level without relying on the awakening of supernatural ability within 2 years will be the test of whether he can be considered a heavenly son of the age. This complete defeat came at the right time, so that he will not be arrogant. He can clearly understand the gap between himself and Peng Liyun, and the fact that he may not be able to catch up in a few years. The advantages outweigh the disadvantages. Maybe this is a wake-up call. This Weibo post seemed to be speaking from Lu Cheng's point of view, but the whole post was full of condescension and sinister thoughts that Lu Cheng relied on the awakening of supernatural ability to improve by leaps and bounds. In other words, it was implying that Lu Cheng was not as good as Peng Liyun, and that he would have to get used to mediocrity and depression. Yenjika gritted her teeth and quietly clenched her fists. This person is talking nonsense. Cheng, don't pay attention to him. Okay. Lu Cheng exhaled. In fact, all-knowing man in ganghood was right about some things. The benefits of his rapid improvement were indeed running out. The awakening of supernatural ability was not something that could be considered at this stage. The changes to the body caused by the practice of dance stage were getting weaker and weaker. It was entering the stage where it needed to be accumulated over time. Only the internal practice of the swordsman formula could be looked forward to. Because of this, he became angrier and angrier about this comment because he could not refute it. Looking at his expression, Yenjika pursed her lips and rolled her eyes, as if she was thinking about something. When they returned to the new campus of Songqing University, the sky was already dark. They waved to each other and said goodbye in low spirits. Mu Jinyan could not control her footsteps and followed Lin Quebec, looking at his silent back. She kept thinking of comforting him. No, I know Lin K won't want to be comforted. She restrained herself and stayed 2 steps behind Lin K to accompany him. When they were approaching the 9th dormitory, Lin K suddenly stopped and turned to look at Mu Jinyan. Do you have a pen and paper? Ah. Mu Jinyan was stunned. He is talking to me? He is talking to me for the first time. He knows I want an autograph. She came to her senses and hurriedly took off her backpack. She took out a pen and a sticky note, and handed them to Lin Quebec. Lin K did not say anything and quickly wrote a line of words. Thank you for not comforting me. Thank you for not comforting me. Mu Jinyan took back the sticky note, and saw Lin K turn around and walk into the dormitory. His eyes were painful, but his back was straight. I will always support you. Mu Jinyan shouted, no longer caring about other people's opinions. Lu Cheng was pulled to the lakeside by Yenjika. They passed through the woods and came to the deserted western district. What are we doing here? He could not help but ask. Follow me. Yenjika had never been here before. She only came here when she was abducted by Lu Cheng. But she noticed something around with her girl's special attention and sensitivity. She took Lu Cheng to an unfinished building. She pointed up and said, let's go to the roof. I want to feel the breeze. This building was planned to be the library of the new campus. It would replace the temporary one and become the largest library in the province and one of the best in the country. Okay. Lu Cheng understood that the girl wanted him to see the distance and feel the cool breeze. So he did not refuse. Along the stairs, they walked slowly. After a long time, they finally came to the top and saw the scenery without guardrails. Looking down from above, the eastern district was brightly lit. The lake reflected the light. The scenery was so charming and refreshing. Lu Cheng's depression in his heart seemed to be relieved. Let's sit on the side. Yenjika suggested. She was not afraid of heights at all. Lu Cheng took the tissue and spread it on the edge. He sat down with the girl leaning against each other. They breathed in the cool breeze and looked at the open sky. Suddenly, Yenjika looked ahead and said, Cheng, do you remember I sang for you? Chapter 336. The cold wind was blowing and the night was quiet. Looking at Yenjika, who had just finished singing, Lu Cheng felt relaxed and calm. His gloominess had completely faded away. She took a deep breath and glanced at him. She raised her chin and hummed deliberately. My singing was not bad, right? Her 2 feet dangled outside the building, swaying lightly and playfully. Not only was it not bad. Lu Cheng laughed and reached out to hold Yenjika's waist, letting her lean her head on his shoulder. He looked at the Weishui Lake in the distance and said with a bit of self-mockery, people will always be greedy little by little. At first, I didn't have much confidence in defeating Peng Liyun. Although I said that in front of you, I was actually quite nervous. I thought that not only should I join hands with your brother, but also the effect of the second awakening of the supernatural ability of fire was not worse than expected. I also hoped that we could face Peng Liyun in our best condition, and just try our best to beat him. I didn't expect to beat Shanbei in the end. However, as the second awakening of the supernatural ability of fire brought about an obvious improvement, and as my dance stage cultivation progressed by leaps and bounds, I gradually gained confidence. I was no longer satisfied with my previous thoughts, and I no longer felt that overthrowing Shanbei was an impossible task. When I obtained the Zhe formula, the Army formula, and the Qian formula, and mastered them quickly, I became even more ambitious. I felt that I could compete with Peng Liyun. I knew that I was definitely weaker than him, but I no longer thought that this gap was insurmountable. I was able to defeat Zhang Zhutong and Han Jifei in the past. Now I have the hope to defeat Peng Liyun. Don't laugh. I did think so before. Even though your brother fought hard with Fang Zhirong and didn't cause much damage to Peng Liyun, I was still full of hope before the battle. But reality taught me a lesson. I tried my best, but Peng Liyun seemed to be at ease. It seemed that no matter how I fought, he could firmly suppress me. If I hadn't risked using the variant severe warning at the end, I'm afraid I wouldn't have seen his strongest side. The greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. The truth is crueler. That's why I was so upset and depressed and easily angry at others' bad comments. Now that I think about it, I was a little too arrogant. Yenjika pursed her lips and smiled as she listened to Lu Cheng's analysis of her inner thoughts. Isn't it said that men don't want to expose their embarrassing failures in front of girls? Yes, the so-called pride and self-esteem of men. Cheng, why are you telling me this? Lu Cheng chuckled. Because you are Coach Yan, the mentor of my life. It's good that you remember. Yenjika immediately beamed with joy and deliberately said in an old-fashioned tone. Then what do you think now? What made her the happiest was that Cheng seemed to have walked out of the shadow of failure. Thoughts. Yes, recognize the gap and catch up. I have a small goal. I want to defeat Shanbei before Peng Liyun graduates. Without waiting for Yenjika's answer, he suddenly added, I heard that Peng Liyun doesn't like to take the stairs through the front door. Instead, he habitually jumps out of the window. Is that true? Yenjika was startled and blurted out. What do you want? Based on his understanding of Cheng, he wouldn't mention this for no reason. Lu Cheng looked down at the frightening scene and said with a smile, I want to try. Do you want to join me? Although Yenjika wasn't afraid of heights, she didn't want to commit suicide and didn't have a hobby of jumping off a building. Looking at the ground far away and the scene that could make a person with acrophobia weak in the knees, she reflexively opened her mouth to refuse. At this moment, Lu Cheng turned to look at her and smiled calmly. Trust me. Hearing this, Yenjika gently bit her pink lips and nodded, saying yes. Yes. As soon as she finished speaking, she felt herself being pulled over by Lu Cheng and carried in a princess carry, with one hand holding the crook of her leg, and the other holding her back. Why this position? Yenjika was so shy that she hit Lu Cheng. This was the first time she was carried in a princess carry. No, how could he carry her in a princess carry at this time? Lu Cheng chuckled and answered, If the situation goes wrong, this position makes it easier for me to throw you out. No matter what, he couldn't let his little fairy get hurt. Ah. While Yenjika was still thinking about this sentence, she suddenly found Lu Cheng jumping forward. She suddenly felt the wind in her ears become fierce. Her body fell rapidly and her hair was flying wildly. The ground was getting closer and closer, bigger and bigger. Yenjika, who was used to being rational, felt her hair stand on end. She instinctively wanted to scream, as if she had heard the knock of the Grim Reaper on the door. Was this the excitement of bungee jumping? But now it was even more terrible than bungee jumping. There was no rope around her waist. Was this the feeling between life and death? She subconsciously hugged Lu Cheng tightly and leaned her face against the place that made her feel safe. When they were about to hit the ground, Lu Cheng suddenly condensed his chi and blood, force and spirit, hugging and releasing. His body seemed to expand and expand, changing the friction with the air and gliding forward in a small arc bang. He stepped on the ground, and the ground seemed to shake. Straightening his back and transmitting the force, Lu Qing carried Yenjika in a princess carry and took a big step forward, as light as a feather. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. He completely neutralized all the force of the recoil, and didn't let the girl feel uncomfortable at all. Done. Yenjika's long eyelashes fluttered and looked around. She actually didn't close her eyes just now and just looked straight at the ground. Coach Yen, we landed safely. With this jump, Lu Qing vented all his negative emotions and gave a humorous answer in an excited tone. Yenjika laughed and struggled to stand up straight. She kept tidying her long hair with both hands and looked around with bright eyes. Her cheeks were flushed with excitement, like a child who played an interesting game. Was it fun? Was it exciting? Lu Qing asked cheerfully. Yes. Yenjika nodded hard and admitted honestly. She was always led by Chung to do bad things. Suddenly, she remembered something and raised her eyebrows. You still have internal injuries. How can you jump just like that? Aren't you afraid of adding more injuries to your injuries? I'm fine, aren't I? Lu Qing moved his body to show that he was fine and then said with a smile, I'm young, so I have to be frivolous. Humph, it's not me who is injured anyway. Yenjika knew that her boyfriend mainly wanted to vent. Seeing that he was fine, she didn't say more. But Lu Qing was still excited. He turned around and squatted down. Come, I'll carry you. I'm not tired. My feet are not sore. Yenjika answered with a confused face. What's the matter? What reason does a boyfriend need to carry his girlfriend? Lu Qing smiled and didn't change his posture. Yenjika's eyes moved. She pursed her lips and turned her head, secretly spitting. But she walked briskly to him and bent down. Lu Qing carried the girl on his back and strolled on the edge of the deserted western district. He listened to her softly humming a melodious song and chatted with her from time to time. Actually, my brother is more affected than you. I think so too. But he doesn't need or want sympathy or comfort. That's Lin Quebec. I believe he can eventually catch up. Laggards may not always be laggards. Are you encouraging me in a disguised way? If you say so, then so be it. You can talk all you want, but can you not always blow into my ear? So what if I blow into your ear? You even kissed me. You can kiss me too. I don't mind. Rogue. The moonlight was gentle, and the barren land was beautiful. The next morning, despite his internal injuries, Lu Qing woke up early as usual. He went to the Weishui Lake and started practicing the swordsman formula in the cool breeze. Relying on his inner vision state and the dance stage martial artist's ability to control minute details, he repaired the disharmony in his body little by little. Geezer sure stood beside him with his arms folded. He said casually, the swordsman formula has a good healing effect. I'll teach you the healing skills of the ice sect when I have time. How long do you think it will take for you to fully recover? 11 or 12 days, if there's no fierce battle, Lu Qing said with a little guilty. Chapter 337. It was drizzling lightly, knocking on the windowsill and isolating the noise from the outside world. Combined with the words Sunday morning, it created a lazy atmosphere that made people unwilling to open their eyes or leave their bed. Yen Xiaoling wrapped herself in the quilt and didn't want to wake up. In her dream, she seemed to be able to forget yesterday's failure and sadness and not worry about anything. She had a bad habit of sleeping intermittently and looking at her phone from time to time when she woke up. Her good skill was to turn over and fall asleep quickly. She forced herself to open her eyes and put her phone under the warm quilt. Yen Xiaoling unlocked the screen and refreshed the campus forum she had browsed before. She saw a new post marked in red. Is there anyone who wants to cheer for the martial arts club now? Cheer for the martial arts club? Wasn't the match yesterday? Am I hallucinating? Yen Xiaoling rubbed her face and clicked on the post. The poster said, I watched the match between the martial arts club and Shanbei. It made my blood boil and I feel sorry for them. They fought so well, but still had to bear the pain of failure. I feel that I should do something for them. Is there anyone who wants to go to the martial arts arena to show support? Now boys or girls are welcome. Well, Yen Xiaoling scrolled down and found a lot of replies. The more she read, the more impulsive she became. Finally, she conquered the cold of the winter morning and pulled herself out of the comfortable bed. She put on a long down jacket, opened the dormitory door, and ran into the bone-chilling north wind. As a girl from Yinling, she couldn't adapt to the southern winter at all. In the martial arts arena, Lu Qing practiced the swordsman formula internally for a while, and then took a break. He knew how to relax and tighten, which fully showed the identity of the injured. During this process, he noticed that students were coming in one after another. They walked to the stands on both sides and sat down in a mess. What's going on? Lu Qing, who was correcting and guiding Yenjika, was puzzled. He couldn't figure out what was going on. Flash. Doesn't seem like it. Qing, look, there are so many students. We didn't have so many students watching us during the special training. Yenjika also sensed that something was wrong. Taking advantage of her boyfriend's approach, she raised her chin toward the stands. Yeah, it's making me nervous. I'm always afraid of making big news. Lu Qing looked around and answered in a low voice. At this moment, Kai Zongming's eyes met his as he was looking around. He said excitedly, Qing, did you see that? Some of our classmates even came to watch our training, and there were so many of them. This is the rhythm of becoming famous. This is the treatment of a martial arts expert. It can't be that bad, right? Lu Qing was stunned. Kai Zongming was about to make up a set of self-justifying theories when he suddenly saw the students who came on Sunday morning stand up. They formed a loudspeaker with their hands and shouted to the special training members, "Good luck! Keep it up!" Their voices echoed in the slightly spacious stadium. Lu Qing and the others were stunned for a moment, but they soon realized that the students were expressing their support for yesterday's competition. Keep up the good work means that you guys did very, very well in the last match. Good luck. Keep it up. The scattered voices became more and more orderly and gradually merged into one. Lu Qing and the others seemed to have been injected with chicken blood. They became more motivated and passionate in training. Quick, take a picture. Xu Rui's eyes were slightly red, and she ordered the cameraman with shining eyes. What a great bunch of classmates. What a loving picture. When everyone left reluctantly, the special training was coming to an end. Xu Rui finally found a chance to record the post-match match that she was too embarrassed to do yesterday. She decided to start with the most difficult part. Lin Kei, how's your recovery? Has the dark poison force been completely eliminated? Xu Rui put on a friendly smile. She couldn't be wrong to start with words of concern. Lin Kei panted and sweated. He glanced at her and said, "Secret. Secret? Secret again. What a damn secret." Xu Rui's mouth was half open, and the corner of her eyes twitched. After taking a deep breath, she maintained her professional smile and said, "Are you afraid that Sanjiang College will find out about the progress of your recovery? Well, I'll change the question. You seem to be in good spirits. It seems that you have walked out of the influence of failure." "No." Lin Kei answered very seriously. What an honest boy. Xu Rui had the urge to cover her face and sigh, but she still smiled gracefully. "Why do you say so? You don't look like one." "Failure inspires me to move forward," Lin Kei said concisely. What a standard answer. I feel like I've been tricked. Xu Rui silently watched Lin Kei turn around and walk to the locker room. She collected herself and stopped Lu Qing. She smiled and said, "You seem to be in a good mood. Young people don't fail." Lu Qing laughed. "I like to chat with young people like you. I feel full of vitality again." Xu Rui made fun of herself. "About yesterday's match, what do you think? I found the gap. Well, I also saw the hope and set a goal." Lu Qing said frankly, not hiding anything. "You have momentum." Xu Rui gave him a thumbs up and praised him sincerely. She didn't want to pester him and turned to Yenjika. "Is it a pity that you didn't play yesterday?" She passed the microphone to Yenjika. Yenjika pursed her lips and smiled. "Yes. Although I couldn't have changed anything, it was still a pity." They were a little excited by the president's words. In the locker room of the away team, Gieserscher looked at Lu Qing and Lin Kei and asked, "You two brats, can you fight?" Lu Qing and Lin Kei didn't look at each other, but they shouted at the same time, "Yes." Chapter 338. Since all of you can fight, We don't need to care about the order. Geezer sure had an indifferent look on his face. Little Yen, you'll be the vanguard. You'll gain more combat experience. Okay. Yenjika answered in a clear voice. Geezer sure looked at Lin Quebec. You'll be the second one. Don't fight too hard. Don't let the last bit of poison come back and leave a bad effect. He made it sound very serious on purpose so that Lin K wouldn't overhear it. Lin K nodded slightly with an expressionless face. Geezer sure glanced at Lu Cheng. Brat, take it easy in the end. Yes, master. After a week of treatment, Lu Cheng was eager to fight in the arena. In the locker room of the home team, Chu Hui looked at Luo Hei's and Yin Xiangxi and shook his head with a smile. It's a pity that the substitutes of Songqing University are much stronger. Otherwise, you two can take turns to fight Lin K, and I can fight Lu Cheng alone. That would be easy. Yet the substitutes of Songqing University are much stronger. It's not that easy to defeat them. Yin Xiangxi sighed. Yenjika was a professional 9th pin fighter. Li Mao was close to professional 9th pin, and Sun Jian, Lin Hua, and Kai Zoming were all strong 1st pin fighters. It was not easy to defeat them. Luo Hei's echoed. Unless we meet you, President. Chu Hui smiled reservedly. I have to maintain my full strength to fight against Lu Cheng. I can't consume too much energy in advance. According to my estimation, Songqing University will definitely let the substitutes be the vanguard when the gap between you and the substitutes is not that big. Lu Cheng's internal injuries haven't healed yet, so he should be the one to hold the field. If he can avoid fighting, he should. If he can, he should. At this point, he turned his head to look at Yin Xiangxi. Li Mao has the problem of being nervous. Although it's not too serious, it still affects him to some extent. Yenjika has less actual combat experience and is a girl, so she tends to panic when encountering situations. Sun Jian and Kai Zoming are relatively weaker, so they are all restrained by your fighting style. You'll be the first one to fight. Fight fiercely and scare them. Try to win quickly. Okay. Yin Xiangxi clenched his fists, eager to try. He was known for not blocking, only attacking and not defending. He was good at seizing opportunities with courage and judgment in a split second. His fighting style was very aggressive and could scare people. In short, you and Heize should exhaust Lin K as much as possible. Don't let me be distracted by him. This is the key to victory, Chu Hui said with high fighting spirit. In the blink of an eye, the match was about to begin. Led by Geezer Shi, Lu Cheng, Yenjika and the others walked out of the locker room and went to the guest team seats in a single file. At this moment, a burst of ear-piercing boos suddenly rang out in the stadium full of spectators, which lasted for a long time. You're making me want to go to the bathroom, Talker teased casually. Then you should go and have your prostate checked. Lu Cheng glanced at him. Different home grounds really had different styles. The students of Sanjiang High School did not curse or attack, they just booed you. Xiaoming didn't want to lose, so he said, "This is a figure of speech. Do you understand? You're so uncultured." Hee, listening to the boos. Do you have the urge to beat them to a stop, just like that time in Yimo? You say it like you've been there yourself. Lu Cheng said with amusement. Fighting Yimo is a fight between the weak and the strong. What's the point of competing with Sanjiang High School Martial Arts Club? Is it the pleasure of punching a kindergarten or kicking a nursing home? Or is it bullying elementary school students? Bullying elementary school students is quite interesting, really. Kai Zongming thought for a while and said frankly. While talking, they arrived at the guest team seats and sat down. Cheng, were you speaking from your heart to Talker just now? Yenjika leaned close to Lu Cheng's ear, lowered her voice and asked with a smile. Cuckoo, you know me best. Lu Cheng chuckled. I'm belittling him strategically and attaching importance to him tactically. Chu Hui has entered the dance stage and has improved his supernatural ability to fly. Compared to before, he has changed fundamentally. He was able to defeat an 8th pin dance stage fighter before, so now he's definitely harder to deal with. That's right. Yenjika first agreed in a low voice, then turned her eyes and smiled. But there's still a big gap between you and him. Especially when his supernatural ability is more restrained by you. Although Cheng couldn't fly, he could release his supernatural abilities of ice and fire. If Chu Hui really wanted to fly, then he would be shot down by a bow. Of course, this wasn't the only use of his supernatural ability to fly. Chu Hui's strange direction changes and use of space during battle were all beyond the level of a high-ranked Dan stage fighter. Since Ko Qian said so, then I'll reluctantly be proud of him. Lu Cheng saw the referee enter the arena and stand in the center. He heard the broadcast announcing the two sides of the first round. Yin Xiangxi versus Yan Zhika. Lu Cheng reached out and held the girl's delicate hand, reminding her with concern, "You can't panic when you fight with him." "You can't panic either." Yan Zhika smiled tacitly. In the past week and even in the past year, she and Cheng had watched a lot of Yin Xiangxi's videos. They had already summed up the way to fight against him. That was to not panic and not be pulled into his aggressive rhythm. She had to hold her breath and move around. Even if there was a certain chance, she wouldn't fight recklessly. She would wait until Yin Xiangxi was exhausted, and when the perfect opportunity appeared, she would seize it without hesitation and firmly launch a counterattack to kill him with one blow. Clear the stage with one pole. Don't be stubborn for long. The two squeezed each other's hands. Yan Zhika stood up and bumped fists with Lin Ke, Li Mao, and the others. Then she walked to the stone steps unhurriedly. The boos became louder, mixed with a lot of flirtatious whistles. The atmosphere in the stadium was heating up again. Step by step, Yan Zhika stepped onto the arena. She saw Yin Xiangxi from the corner of her eye, who was already in position. He was a handsome boy with a straight beard. He looked thin and reserved, but in fact he was crazy and aggressive. Yin Xiangxi's gaze was also involuntarily attracted by her. He only felt that his opponent was bright and beautiful. Her starry eyes tugged at his heartstrings, making him unable to be ruthless. He instinctively wanted to pay attention to his demeanor and show his gentlemanly side. He shook his head and suppressed the ripples in his heart. Ferocity was brewing in his heart again. Sometimes being handsome and beautiful was equivalent to being born with a supernatural ability. The supernatural ability to charm. When Yan Zhika stood properly and got into her stance, the referee looked at the clock. After a dozen seconds, he raised his right hand and said, "Talk time starts now." This match, which determined who would advance and who would be eliminated, had officially begun. If Songqing University won, Songqing University would follow Shanbei University into the national competition, while Songqing University would have to start all over again. Yin Xiangxi took a breath and didn't say anything. He just stared at Yan Zhika with a dangerous look. Was this the legendary killing with a look? Yan Zhika wasn't scared or nervous. Instead, she inexplicably wanted to laugh. She remembered Cheng's ridicule. Two people would become more and more alike in some aspects after being together for a long time. The girl stopped thinking about it, ignored his gaze, and focused on adjusting her state. At the end, Yin Xiangxi suddenly opened his mouth and said with a smile, "Don't worry. I won't be too harsh." Did he mean that he didn't need to use his full strength to deal with her? Was he trying to provoke her by being frivolous? As this thought flashed through Yan Zhika's mind, the referee waved his right hand and announced loudly, "Start." "Humph. You've been led astray by my brother. You've learned to be silent for 3 minutes before saying something bad at the end." Yan Zhika thought for a moment, and didn't get irritated. She swayed her waist and walked around Yin Xiangxi with light steps. Like a climbing mountain goat, she was nimble and balanced, not giving her opponent a chance to get close to attack her. She took advantage of the gap and suddenly moved to her opponent's side. She raised her right arm and punched down with a clenched fist. Yin Xiangxi didn't try to parry. He tightened his thighs and gave her a side kick, faster and fiercer. Bam. According to this trend, Yan Zhika would be kicked directly before she could hit her opponent. She calmed down, suppressed her impatience and panic, and adhered to her original fighting style. While Yin Xiangxi was kicking to the west, she swung her waist and slid to the back of her opponent. Her right fist moved diagonally, and under the explosive force of her shoulder, she smashed towards her opponent's temple. Bam! She lowered her waist and followed up with her left fist. Two peaks piercing the ear. Yin Xiangxi suddenly bent his waist, shrank his head, and leaned back quickly. At the same time, he raised his elbow and was about to hit Yan Zhika's lower abdomen. No parry, just one hit. Yin Zheke didn't take advantage of this dangerous opportunity. She suddenly dispersed the force in her arms and jumped back. She took a few steps back lightly and harmoniously, and quickly widened the distance between them. After a few moves, she gradually became familiar with Yin Xiangxi's fighting style. No longer nervous and flustered, she strictly followed the plan made before the competition. She continued to move around. If she couldn't hit her opponent, she would immediately retreat. Bam 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 bam. Lu Cheng was a little worried when he heard the intermittent sounds on the field. Although he knew that the referee was a senior of High Dan stage, and would be able to stop the attacks of two professional ninth pin fighters, he still couldn't help but worry that Yin Zheke would be hurt. On the other hand, Chu Hui, who was sitting in the home team's seats, didn't look good. His expectation of a quick victory was ruined from the beginning. Didn't they say that Yin Zheke lacked actual combat experience? Didn't they say that girls were easy to panic? Why was she so experienced and clear-headed? She didn't fall into Xiangxi's rhythm at all, making him unable to use his strength. In this way, Lin Ke won't consume enough energy, and I won't be able to face Lu Qing in good condition. Should I use that move? Just use it. Anyway, I'll be able to advance if I win this match. I never thought I'd win against Shanbei next week. After a while of moving around, Yin Zheke noticed that Yin Xiangxi's attacking momentum had decreased, and he was obviously impatient. She immediately had a plan. Once again, she approached her opponent's side and visualized the scene of a mighty avalanche in her mind. She shook her shoulders and slightly raised her right arm, as if she was about to attack. Bam! Yin Xiangxi, who was a little anxious, once again gave a fierce side kick. At this moment, Yin Zheke bent her spine and forcibly changed her center of gravity. She pulled her body and slid behind her opponent when he was standing on one foot. Chapter 339. Bam! As soon as she got behind Yin Xiangxi, Yin Zheke exerted all her strength in her shaking shoulders. She shook her right arm and stabbed at Yin Xiangxi's temple like a big gun. Standing on one foot with his back to the enemy, Yin Xiangxi was in a precarious situation. It seemed that he had nowhere to run. At this critical moment, his courage did not diminish. He bent his spine like a bow and forcibly pulled back his left leg, which had missed the kick, and swept it backward. He leaned his body forward and took advantage of the momentum to avoid Yin Zheke's fatal blow. He still didn't make any move, just one move. However, this time, Yin Zheke didn't continue to dodge like before. Instead, she resolutely took advantage of the momentum of her right arm's missed attack, and jumped to the back of her opponent again. Taking advantage of her position in the center of the circle, she dodged the sweeping whip kick in time. Now that she had sensed her opponent's impatience and seized the perfect opportunity, she wouldn't hesitate to counterattack and kill him with one blow. One pull to clear the platform. Bam! She kicked out her right foot at Yin Xiangxi's supporting leg. At this point, Yin Xiangxi was already at the end of his rope. He had no choice but to throw himself forward and roll like a lazy donkey. Yin Zheke stepped on the ground with her right foot and slid closer. Then she kicked out her left leg at the opponent's chest. Bam! Yin Xiangxi barely raised his arm and took the kick. Bam! 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 Yin Zheke visualized the scene of brutal blizzard, and kicked out her legs, one faster and harder than the other. Bam! 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 Lying on the ground, Yin Xiangxi couldn't exert his strength. After blocking 3 kicks with his hands, he was kicked away completely. Then Yin Zheke jumped forward and kicked at his throat. First round, Yin Zheke wins. The referee glanced and shouted. Yes. Yin Zheke was so excited that she turned around and waved her fist at the guest seats. Then she saw Lu Qing jump up and hit the table with both hands. He was even more excited than she was. Who would have thought that he could beat Yin Xiangxi like this before the match? Things would be much easier if he could find a way to restrain his opponent and strictly execute it. Trash! Chu Hui swallowed the anger and grievance in his throat, and did not curse out loud. Previously, he had pinned so much hope on Yin Xiangxi, thinking that it was quite possible for him to quickly become Songqing University's substitute. In the end, not only did he not win quickly, but he also lost to his opponent. How were they supposed to fight? His plan was ruined from the very beginning. He could only pray that Lu Cheng and Lin Ke's injuries were more serious than he had expected. Go, do your best. Chu Hui patted Luo Hei's shoulder weakly. Hopefully, he could exhaust Lin Ke a little more. Luo Hei stood up. His tall and broad stature was indeed a good material for practicing martial arts. In the ring, Yin Zheke, who had calmed down, realized that the muscles in her legs and feet were tight and sore. Her physical strength was close to the limit. Guerrilla fighting required high-speed movements, timely direction changes, and nimble footwork, which consumed a lot of physical strength. Yin Zheke and Yin Xiangxi had fought for several minutes, and at the end, they had even used 24 blizzard strikes with the help of the yin-yang twist, so it was normal for them to have such a reaction. She rested her hands on her knees and gasped for air. She saw Luo Hei stride past Yin Xiangxi, who had just left the arena. He should be able to exchange a few more moves. Behind him are my brother and Cheng. They all look like they want to fight. Well, it seems that I don't have to force myself. While thinking, Yin Zheke, who had slightly recovered, straightened her back, turned around, and walked to the edge of the ring. She left the arena along the stone steps. The referee looked at the stunned Luo Hei and activated his Dantian force. Second round, Luo Hei wins. I won. Luo Hei stared at Yin Zheke's back in a daze, as if he was dreaming. Lin Ke slid down his zipper, took off his jacket, high-fived Lu Cheng and the others, and walked to his cousin calmly. I won't say good luck. Yin Zheke pursed her lips and smiled. She raised her hand and bumped her cousin's fist. What she meant was that he didn't need to cheer for such a high-level opponent. Just right for recovery. Lin Ke answered briefly and approached the stone steps amidst the boos. Behind him, Lu Cheng supported Yin Zheke and chuckled. You fought so well. This was the joke after losing to Peng Liyun in the last round. It was the difference between you fought so well and you fought so well. Then I'll accept the compliment. Yin Zheke's eyes curved and her voice rose at the end. While climbing the ring, Lin Ke's body emitted a crisp sound, as if a rusty machine was starting to turn. It gradually smoothed out and climbed to the peak. When he stood in front of Luo Hei, his whole body was as deep as the sea. His momentum seemed to have solidified. Suddenly, Luo Hei felt that he had turned into a little white rabbit in front of a tiger. He was inexplicably frightened and nervous. He couldn't help but think of the scene when Lin Ke fought against Shannon. That terrifying posture of using the dance stage explosion to attack at the beginning of the match. Is he scared before the fight? Just as the thought flashed through his mind, he heard the referee shout loudly, "Start." Luo Hei didn't dare to stay in the same place. His footsteps were steady and fast. Lin Ke straightened his knees and shot out like lightning. Although he didn't use force concentration, he was as fast as thunder. In just a few steps, he had closed the distance between him and his opponent. That's too far. Lu Cheng didn't have the strength to complain, but he vaguely read the other meaning in his brother-in-law's eyes. If we can't even beat Chu Hui, why should we participate in the national competition? Is he provoking me? Is my brother-in-law worried that I will be traumatized by the competition in Shanbei? Lu Cheng suddenly realized and laughed in a low voice. Then I won't hold back. My brother-in-law is such an awkward guy. After a fist bump, Lu Cheng looked at the arena and stepped forward. Fight Chu Hui alone? I'm not afraid of you. Chu Hui, who was standing in the center, seemed to be in an unbelievable dream. He was afraid that he would suddenly wake up. I've painstakingly planned and prayed and looked forward to it so that I could defeat Lu Cheng alone in the end. But in the end, it happened inexplicably. After Xiangxi and Haize both failed, I was in despair. Who knew that things would turn around and Lin Ke himself would come down? Good things really fall from the sky. He raised the corner of his mouth, and could no longer hide the ecstasy in his heart. If God gives you a gift, you will be punished. Chapter 340. Lin Ke's desire to win was almost abnormal. If he could still fight, he wouldn't give up voluntarily. Based on the above 2 points, the reason why he voluntarily left the arena after defeating Luo Hei was most likely because the influence of the dark poison force was much more serious than I expected. I really had to thank Fang Zhirong for getting the opportunity to challenge Lu Cheng one-on-one. A self-consistent chain of logic flashed in Chu Hui's mind. making him forget other factors and outlining an unconcealable smile. I hope Lu Cheng's internal injury is more serious than I expected. No, even if it's only to the extent of my speculation. Today's victory will be mine. He fixed his eyes on Lu Cheng, who was walking up the stairs step by step. Lu Cheng stood in front of him with a slightly pale face. Smiling slightly, Chu Hui took off his top hat in a very gentlemanly manner, put it in front of his chest and bowed. Lu Cheng made an obeisance, which was a response. The referee didn't give them any more time. He immediately raised his right hand and shouted, "Start." The last round of the match began. Hearing this, even though Yan Zhika was full of confidence in Lu Cheng, she couldn't help but clench her fists and open her eyes wide. Chu Hui instantly flew up to a position a few meters above the ground, floating gracefully and leisurely, throwing out the black top hat in his hand. The hat fluttered and fell to the seats of the home team. As soon as it touched the ground, Chu Hui suddenly fell down, head down and feet up. His right hand clenched into a fist, like a huge stone smashing towards Lu Cheng from the sky. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. His clothes clung tightly to his body, making flapping sounds. The momentum was hair-raising. Although the audience had seen this scene many times, they were still shocked, as if they were watching a blockbuster with special effects. Facing the attack from above, Lu Cheng assumed a stance and stood firmly. He visualized the figure of a man with the head of a beast riding on a red dragon. Suppressing the violent heat that was beginning to swell in his body, he calmly clenched his fist and charged upwards. Bang! His fist hit the void and exploded a mass of flames that reflected the audience's eyes. Zhurong force, supernatural ability of fire. The flames rolled out, and Chu Hui's falling figure suddenly stopped. He rose up again to avoid the aftermath in time, in case his hair and clothes were ignited and burned. He narrowed his eyes, not surprised by Lu Cheng's response. He took a deep breath to withdraw his qi, blood, force and spirit, and then released them. Woo! As his body expanded, Chu Hui fell headfirst to the ground again. But unlike before, he spun quickly and turned himself into a drill that extended to the ground with his fist as the tip. The scenery around him shook weirdly, and even the air was affected. The combination of the explosion of the dance stage, the acceleration of gravity, and the terrifying rotation, flesh and blood tornado. If it wasn't for the fact that he couldn't use weapons due to the level restriction, Chu Hui's move would have been even more terrifying. Lu Cheng maintained his previous stance. When the high-speed spinning fist was about to fall on his head, he suddenly stepped back, as if he wanted to avoid the sharp edge, and hit his opponent's waist and abdomen. At this moment, Chu Hui's figure strangely changed direction from vertical to horizontal, turning the acceleration of gravity into his own kinetic energy. His fist spun quickly and hit Lu Cheng. Lulan swore not to return it until it was broken. This punch was very satisfying for him. Not only did he use all the strength in his body, but he also made full use of the external force. The combination of the two forces and the spiral force was really powerful. This is the most powerful punch I've ever made since I started practicing martial arts. Chu Hui thought. He was excited to break all obstacles in his way. Lu Cheng lowered his waist and quickly made a force concentration. Then he popped up his right arm. His arm swelled, and his 5 fingers pressed against his opponent's drill. Bam bam bam. The sound of collisions was continuous. The muscles and fascia in his palm bulged and blocked Chu Hui's right fist. His fingers glowed with a dark green color, and kept colliding with the rotating edge. Chu Hui felt his most powerful punch was like hitting a steel plate. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't break it or drill through it. No, even if it was a steel plate, it would be broken by my punch. Crack. Wearing a white martial arts suit with black edges, Lu Cheng's feet pressed inward, creating a spider web that spread outward. However, his body didn't move at all. His right arm swung slightly, and then pressed forward again like flowing water, firmly blocking Chu Hui's flesh and blood tornado. My most powerful punch was so easily blocked by him? Is the gap between him and me so big? A weak sixth pin fighter is so terrifying. At this moment, Chu Hui felt an inexplicable sense of despair. The rotation of the flesh and blood tornado slowed down. Lu Cheng's 5 fingers pressed down, and was about to catch his fist. At this moment, Chu Hui bounced up and was pulled up by the invisible hand. He narrowly avoided being caught by his opponent. If he was caught by Lu Cheng and poured into the cold wave, he would lose. Once again, he floated several meters in the air. Restraining his frustration, he decided to change his fighting style. He didn't want to rush forward and attack fiercely anymore. Instead, he relied on the strange change of direction brought by his supernatural flying ability to fight. Another kind of hurricane blew up and distracted Lu Cheng, gradually exposing his unhealed internal injuries. With a swoosh, Chu Hui was like a fighter jet, diving towards his opponent. Seeing that both sides were about to collide, he suddenly pulled up his body, drawing a beautiful arc, strangely moved to the side, and with a bang, kicked the enemy's temple. Bam! Lu Cheng raised his left arm first, blocking the kick just in time. Bam! Chu Hui turned the kick into a stomp and kicked out the other foot. It was so fast that Lu Cheng couldn't react in time. However, Lu Cheng moved his arm in advance and blocked the attack in time. Bam! 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 Lu Cheng blocked and blocked. Although he seemed to be in a panic, he always rushed forward. However, he still defended steadily. All of a sudden, Chu Hui changed his direction without warning. He came to the back of Lu Cheng's head and kicked at his Yuzhen acupoint. His series of kicks just now was to mobilize his opponent and prepare for this move. Bam! Lu Cheng leaned his body and swung his arm backward, hitting Chu Hui's instep. Bam! 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 Chu Hui tried his best to stop abruptly with his supernatural flying ability, changing directions in a strange way, creating great opportunities again and again. Unfortunately, every time he seemed to have fallen into Lu Cheng's trap and was always blocked by him. At most, there were some errors that did not affect the overall situation. How could he not feel hopeless? How did he block my attacks just now? Bam! Boom! His danqi gushed out like a volcano erupting. Chu Hui felt as if his butt had been burned. With a bang, he broke through the airflow and set off a strong wind. In the strong wind, he made a half-arc and miraculously appeared behind Lu Cheng again. Chu Hui's body came to a sudden stop, and his kinetic energy was transmitted. Chu Hui tightened his thighs in an instant, and whipped his opponent's neck horizontally. Let's see if you can still react. Lu Cheng didn't try to dodge. He gathered and retracted his danqi and turned his right hand into a whip, lashing out in the opposite direction. Bang! The whip struck the whip leg, creating a muffled sound. Chu Hui felt a sharp pain in his face. His body shook violently. He didn't dare to stay any longer. He flew up and hid in the air. For the sake of demeanor, he resisted the urge to rub his legs with both hands. Even this won't work? Chu Hui didn't believe it and launched another attack. With the help of his supernatural flying ability, he made 2 consecutive explosions. However, Lu Cheng still defended him so well that he couldn't create a chance to win. Whoosh! 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 He floated up, gasping for air, and feeling the exhaustion in his body. Since the beginning of the fight, he who was not good at physical strength was quite tired. Lu Cheng, on the other hand, was breathing evenly and only sweating a little. How could he continue the fight? Chu Hui felt desperate again, and almost didn't want to attack. His internal injury hadn't healed yet. His internal injury hadn't healed yet. His internal injury hadn't healed yet. Chu Hui kept telling himself as if he was hypnotizing himself. Yes, his internal injury hadn't healed yet. If the intensity of the fight was maintained for a while, it would affect him and give him a chance. Chu Hui took a deep breath and made up his mind. He started to visualize and run his supernatural ability to stimulate the essence and blood in his body. The familiar feeling of power spread. Chu Hui's face turned red and blue. Finally, he stabilized and his body seemed to expand. He returned to his peak state with the help of the secret method. Come on, let's fight until we run out of ammunition and see who will win. Lu Cheng raised his head and glanced at him. He shook his head slightly. What do you mean? The doubt flashed through Chu Hui's mind. He turned into a fighter jet again and swooped down. At this moment, Lu Cheng arched his back, shook his arms and swung his wrists, throwing out a ball of crystal white cold light and crimson-red tyrannical flame. Boom! The cold light and the flame shot out and collided with each other in front of Chu Hui. White fog filled the air and slightly blocked his sight. In the fog, Chu Hui suddenly saw a figure fly up and jump several meters high. Lu Cheng? His pupils shrank to the size of needles. He found that the enemy had jumped to a higher place than his current position. After the shock, he was overjoyed. Chu Hui couldn't believe his eyes. Is Lu Cheng stupid? Why did he give up his advantage and fight me in the air? If I can't win, I might as well buy a piece of tofu and kill myself. Another pie fell from the sky. Chu Hui was about to change his direction when he saw Lu Cheng make a gesture with his hands. His expression became solemn. Army! A deep voice came. Chu Hui's body shook and immediately fell into the thousands of soldiers and horses. He was frightened by the iron-blooded evil spirit. 9 words formula. Army formula. Lu Cheng jumped down and grabbed Chu Hui's shoulder. He poured frost force into Chu Hui and pressed him down to the ground from the air. Whoosh! The sound of wind entered his ears, and Chu Hui woke up. However, the cold had already entered his body and he could not break free. He could only watch as he was about to crash into the ground. You'll die like this, won't you? Just as he lost his courage, he felt the momentum of his falling body suddenly come to a halt, and he landed lightly on his back. Lu Cheng took back his hand and straightened his body. He didn't attack again. Chu Hui was frozen and couldn't move for a while. Round 5, Lu Cheng wins. The referee didn't hesitate. The final result is Songqing University Martial Arts Club wins. Chu Hui immediately woke up when he heard these words. But he felt like he was still dreaming. If Lu Cheng had used the last attack at the beginning, he wouldn't have been able to defend himself. Then the question was, why did we fight for so long? Chapter 341. It's interesting to fight with a supernatural flying ability. Lying on the ground, Chu Hui looked up at Lu Cheng and repeated Lu Cheng's words blankly. For a moment, he even forgot that the coldness in his body had disappeared. He forgot to turn over and stand up, forgetting his usual demeanor. He fought with me for so long because he wanted to experience and enjoy the unique experience of fighting with a supernatural flying ability. Thump! 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 Chu Hui's heart expanded and contracted, spurting out streams of hot blood to disperse the remaining coldness. However, he didn't feel warm at all. Instead, he felt like he had sunk into a 10,000-year-old ice cave, feeling the darkness, depression, and coldness around him. Is this the taste of despair? Is the gap between me and Lu Cheng so big? Even when facing him who hasn't recovered from his internal injuries, I can only be killed within seconds. His previous self-esteem had turned into sarcasm and slaps in the face. Hee, how could there be such a free lunch? Lu Cheng didn't say anything. He cupped his hands, turned around, and walked to the stone steps. To be honest, Chu Hui did have the combat strength of a professional 7th pin. If it were another weak professional 6th pin who hadn't recovered from their internal injuries, it would be more troublesome to deal with him. However, Lu Cheng's unique skills just happened to restrain him, so he could kill him within seconds. It was like fighting a fighter who had just entered the dance stage and didn't have supernatural abilities. For example, although Lu Cheng couldn't detect the operation of his supernatural ability with the ice mirror, Chu Hui didn't rush at him recklessly. He would still make a move to kick him, so there was a prelude. This made it easier for Lu Cheng to predict and respond in advance, so Lu Cheng's strange change of direction had little effect. Similarly, the long-range attack ability of the army formula within a certain range solved the problem of how to hit him. Moreover, Chu Hui didn't have a corresponding secret defense method, and his spirit wasn't strong enough to resist a little like a professional 7th pin fighter, so the result was self-evident. In other words, it would be more difficult for Lu Cheng to fight a normal professional 7th pin fighter in the dance stage than Chu Hui. Of course, the rules of the challenge tournament also limited the opponent's performance. If Chu Hui was allowed to use weapons, things would be completely different if he gave him a bow, a crossbow, or a hot weapon in the air. Watching Lu Cheng leave the arena and walk to the seats, the surrounding audience fell silent. The overwhelming boos had already dissipated, leaving only the lingering sound. Booing the other party at this time was more like booing oneself. Walking along the road back to the starting point, Lu Cheng saw Yanjika walking up to him. She clenched her fist and shouted with a smile. Chung, you did a great job. You're really amazing. She was responding to the earlier, you played great and you played great jokes. Smiling tacitly, Lu Cheng's mood became more and more cheerful. After bumping fists with the girl, he high-fived Lin Ke, Li Mao, Kai Zongming and the others. Everyone was very happy. Haiyuan was weaker than Sanjiang. If they could get past this hurdle, it would mean that the door to the nationals was right in front of them. I really want to celebrate, but reason tells me that I can't get carried away and look down on Haiyuan, Sun Jian said with a smile. Good that you understand. Keep a low profile and accumulate good karma. Lin Hua glared at him. While everyone was talking and laughing, Geyser waved his hand and said, let's go back to the locker room first. Don't you feel embarrassed celebrating in front of so many sad classmates? Of course. Kai Zongming replied without hesitation. That being said, he still followed behind the rest of the team and entered the locker room in the oppressive atmosphere that pervaded the entire venue. Well, he felt embarrassed to celebrate, but he was more afraid of provoking the impulsive classmates and being trampled by thousands of people in the stands. Yin Xiaoling was like an abandoned quail. For a moment, she wanted to cry but had no tears. She wanted to celebrate but had to look around, trembling in fear under the gloomy faces of so many people. Alas! She sighed deliberately and lowered her head with Mu Jinyan, pretending to be sad. Don't hit me, we're on the same side. January 5th, 3:45 p.m. In the martial arts arena of Haiyuan Academy, Lu Qing looked at the fierce battle in the arena. He leaned over to Yan Zhike's ear and said in a low voice, Your brother doesn't want me to fight today, does he? Yan Zhike rolled her eyes and said, My brother left the whole Chu Hui to you in the last match. Isn't that enough? It was Sun Jian's turn to be the vanguard in the match against Haiyuan Academy. However, he still didn't have a good time. At the beginning of the match, he met Qingdu and Jin Sha, who were in the Dan stage and supernatural ability, who were easily defeated. Then Lin Ke showed what he had learned. After 3 minutes of fierce battle, he defeated Chengdu with death sentence again. In the next 2 matches, he faced 2 different professional 9th pin fighters. At first, he seized the opportunity to defeat one of them with the outburst of the Dan stage. Now he was fighting hard with his exhausted body. While Lu Cheng and Yan Zhike were whispering to each other, Lin Ke used mercurial balance to find his opponent's weakness. He moved his arms quickly and threw out meteor force. Bang! Lu Yeqian's blood and qi churned and rushed straight to her throat. Her internal organs seemed to be trembling violently along with her muscles and tendons. She wanted to exert strength with her arms, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't raise them. She could only watch as the other party's fist hovered beside her temple. The referee raised his right hand and said with the sound of dantian, Round 4, Lin Ke wins. Final result, Songqing University Martial Arts Club wins. Lin Ke withdrew his fist and gasped for breath. The sweat on his forehead dripped down, but there was a flash of joy in his tired eyes. Lu Cheng and the others jumped up together and high-fived each other with smiles on their faces, as if they were saying Happy New Year to each other during the Spring Festival. National competition were finally here. They didn't have the excitement and ecstasy after a hard battle, but they had a sense of certainty and beauty. After returning to Songqing and entering the campus, Kai Zongming suddenly suggested with a smile, Why don't we have a meal together? Celebrate? Songqing University Martial Arts Club, which hadn't entered the national competition for many years, did have a reason to celebrate. Sure, where should we go? Lu Qing immediately agreed. After answering, he realized that he wasn't the one making the decision. He quickly looked at his master embarrassedly. Let's go, let's go. Of course we should celebrate. Don't forget to order a few bottles of good wine for this old man. I'll pay for it from the martial arts club. Geyser agreed with a smile. Everyone cheered and began to discuss where to have a meal. In the end, Little Ming made the final decision. Let's go to the food stall. It's a little low class, but we can have a good celebration. After inviting Xu Rui and her shooting team, the martial arts club members went to the food stall near the old campus. They found a spacious place and ordered barbecue, dry pot, goose lips and other dishes. The table was full of food. After opening a bottle of wine for Geyser, Lu Qing and the others poured juice and raised their glasses. Under the camera, they clinked glasses with each other and shouted their emotions in unison. National competition! National competition! Their voices were loud and youthful. Seeing this scene, Xu Rui couldn't help but recall the beautiful life in college. She felt sad. She really wanted to be reborn to the day when she first entered the school, to savor and enjoy the past bit by bit. Once they graduated, they would go their separate ways. Many things in the past and many friendships could never be returned. In the wanton celebration, the noisy Lu Cheng and the others at the next table were dissatisfied. A young man with a tattoo on his arm came over and shouted, "What's the noise?" "Sorry, we'll be careful." Lu Cheng blushed and apologized immediately, feeling that he and the others seemed to have violated public morality. The young man looked around and sneered. "Is it enough to just pay attention?" 7 or 8 men at their table stood up together. Chapter 342. In the unique broadcasting room, the hostess in an evening dress walked gracefully to the center of the room. She thanked the guests in front of her and invited Mr. Fang Jinjue, the president of the National University Martial Arts Federation, to come to the stage. The big screen behind her began to play highlights of the 16 qualified teams. "Mr. Fang, you look more hale and hearty." Seeing Fang Jinjue come to her side, the hostess smiled and greeted him. Fang Jinjue, with white hair and a youthful face, was very good-looking. He smiled and said, "Little fan, I remember you said the same thing last year. Isn't that right? It means that you are getting more spirited and younger." In terms of eloquence, 10 Fang Jinjue were no match for the hostess, Fan Leki. She changed the topic and said with a smile, "Mr. Fang, I think this year's national competition will be more exciting than before." "How can you be so sure when the lots haven't been drawn yet?" Fang Jinjue asked back. "It's obvious. Zhen Huanqing from Guangnan and An Chaoyang from Huahai will graduate in July. Are they willing to be suppressed by Peng Liyun and leave the university martial arts circle in glory? They were the top professional 7th pin fighters in last year's national competition. This year, they are making a comeback and may be able to go further. Besides, with the growth of geniuses like Huahai, Piao Yuan, Guangnan and Li Xiaoyuan, they are likely to win the championship." Fan Leki said with great familiarity. Piao Yuan from Huahai was 1 year older than Lu Cheng and Lin Quebec. "What's the difference between this and the previous 2 years?" Fang Jinjue asked knowingly, with deep wrinkles at the corners of his eyes. Fan Leki said with a smile, "But I think the gap between them and Shanbei capital has narrowed. And this year, it's not just them. The martial arts clubs of Hudong University and Guiyang University were able to advance to the next round as the first in their own division, suppressing the traditional first place. It's enough to show that they're extraordinary. They're all candidates who could create an upset and enter the top 4. In addition, don't look down on the second-place team in the division. There are 2 dark horses this year. One is Mingdao University, which almost made Guangnan lose the game. The 3 He brothers have finally shown their brilliance, and there is still room for improvement in their tactical formation." In front of the computer screen, Lu Cheng and the others nodded slightly. They had all heard of Mingdao University, which had almost created a miracle. Mingdao University was not a strong martial arts school. In the past, it was almost the same as Songqing University, which was in decline. It was not until He Yifang, the eldest of the 3 He brothers, entered the school as a professional 9th pin martial artist. The following year, the twins He Erlong and He Santai also entered Mingdao University. Two rounds would be drawn according to the order of groups A, B, C, and D. At this moment, Li Mao and the others, who had been leisurely watching the show, subconsciously changed their sitting posture and slowed down their breathing. The guest stepped on the stage, exchanged a few words with Fan Leki, and put his hand into the box. Group A, Heshi University Martial Arts Club. Group B, Moshang University Martial Arts Club. Group C, Huatian University Martial Arts Club. Group D. Group D. The guest paused and suddenly became louder. Songqing University Martial Arts Club. "Wow, the group of death is here," Fan Leki exclaimed. "With Huahai and Hudong, Lu Qing was neither surprised nor disappointed. For this reason, it didn't matter which group they drew. Although Hudong might be a little stronger than Juku University, it was limited. Not bad. We didn't draw Shanbei again. Li Mao exhaled and the others echoed. The guest reached out his hand again for the second round of drawing. Group A, Hanbei University Martial Arts Club. Group B, Iron Capital University Martial Arts Club. Group C, Shanghai University. At this point, the final result was self-evident. Fan Leki opened her eyes wide and muttered to herself, "Supergroup of Death." The guest dutifully took out the last ball and showed it to the camera. Group D, Mingdao University Martial Arts Club. In Huahai University Martial Arts Club, after hearing the result, the tall and indifferent Xing Jingjing instinctively looked at the club president not far away. And Chaoyang had long artistic hair. He was quite good-looking and had a bit of scholarly aura. His appearance was quite outstanding, but his eyes were always sleepy and slightly squinted, as if he was dozing off. Songqing University. He only repeated the name in a low voice. Beside him, Piao Yuan, who looked like a monk with a shaved head, grinned. Songqing University, Hudong Mingdao. TSK, I'm really looking forward to it. His facial features were ferocious, and he unconsciously changed the order of the draw. Inside Hudong University, the atmosphere was quite tense. Obviously, no one had expected to draw a supergroup of death. The leader, Yu Ji, shook all the fat on his body and clenched his fist. Songqing University. He looked like a sumo wrestler. His fat was piled up but not soft. It looked very greasy and bouncy. In a male dormitory of Mingdao University, He Yifeng and He Erlong looked at each other with a dignified expression. He Santai lowered his head and typed furiously on the screen of his mobile phone, engrossed in the game. Few supergroup of death. Sun Jian exhaled a mouthful of foul air. What are you afraid of? We've already beaten Shanbei. Do you think they're stronger than Shanbei? Lu Qing looked around and took the initiative to speak. Since Shanbei is not stronger than us, we have a chance to win. Since we have a chance to win, there's no need to feel disappointed. Anyway, it's our first time to participate in this competition. We're not afraid of losing face. Didn't we say before that there's only one word for this national competition? He paused and then shouted together with Lin Ke and Yenjika, "Fight! Fight as hard as you can." After shouting the slogan, Lu Qing saw that Xu Rui was filming something else. He hurriedly held Yenjika's hand and made eye contact with her. He didn't hide his expectation of facing a strong opponent. This April, the national competition. Chapter 343. The cold star was hanging high in the sky, and the wind on the lake was chilly. Lu Qing pulled Yenjika's left hand and put it into his warm pocket. Thinking about going to the capital in April and the national competition, I feel a little excited. After watching the lot drawing ceremony, he couldn't calm down and urged his little fairy, who was in a similar state to him, to take a walk by the lake. There are still more than 2 months to go. No matter how excited you are today, it's useless. Yenjika pursed her lips and teased him. I know, but some reactions can't be controlled. Lu Qing took a deep breath of the fresh, moist air and replied with a big smile. After this wave of excitement, I'll relax and practice martial arts during the winter break. I'll strive to make greater progress before the national competition. Lu Qing's body was not tired, but his mind was. He urgently needed a break to relax his mental tension, so that he could set off again. You're worth teaching. Yenjika pretended to be an old man. She looked up at him and said, I'll go to Jiangnan on the 3rd day of the 1st lunar month. I'll stay at my grandfather's house for a few days, and see if I can help you get information about the 9 words formula, if it's not a secret of the sect. I didn't mention it, but Costil remembered it. Lu Qing narrowed his eyes and couldn't stop smiling. He felt so warm in his heart, as if he had drunk a bowl of hot soup in a world of ice and snow. He laughed and said, It doesn't matter if it's a secret of the sect. When I become the son-in-law of Shushan Study, I'll be half a family member. Then I'll be able to get access to things that don't involve the unique skills of the fighting sect. You're dreaming. Yenjika rolled her eyes and glanced at her boyfriend. He didn't know if she was saying that he was dreaming of becoming the son-in-law of Shushan study, or that he could get access to the secrets of the sect other than the unique skills of the fighting sect. As a person, you have to think about the future. Only then can you live a meaningful life, Lu Qing said happily. Holding the girl's hand, they slowly walked forward. Beside them was the calm and sorrowful surface of the lake. He paused for a moment, and then let his thoughts run wild. When the time comes, I'll have to make a trip to Moshang to wish my master and senior sister a happy new year. I'll also burn incense for all the patriarchs. Hee, I'll take the opportunity to learn a few more unique skills of the ice sect. If I'm lucky, I might even gain something else. For example, Senior Queen of Thought and the others' insights on the cultivation of the army formula, the forwarding formula, and the swordsman formula, as well as the latest research results on cultivation. Yo, now you know how to go to the Ice God sect to pay a New Year's visit? Yenjika joked with a smile. Of course, it's all thanks to your good teaching, Coach Yen. Lu Qing praised sincerely. Now that he had formally become Lu Cheng's disciple, he couldn't just make a phone call to say hello like last year. Kuku had repeatedly reminded him about this. It's good that you understand. How are you going to thank me? Humph. You will definitely say that there is no need for thanks between us. Yenjika's eyebrows relaxed and her eyes lit up. How about a kiss or a massage? Lu Qing suggested a way to express his gratitude. Yenjika glared at him, feeling both annoyed and amused. Are you thanking me or taking advantage of me? How can you call it taking advantage when it's between a boyfriend and girlfriend? Lu Qing chuckled. Before Yenjika could blush, he suddenly remembered something and hurriedly asked. Ku, didn't you say that the last exam was originally on the 19th, but it was moved forward to tomorrow? Yeah, what's wrong? Yenjika blinked and looked at her boyfriend blankly. Have you told Empress Dowager about this? Lu Qing asked. Not yet. Yenjika vaguely sensed her boyfriend's intention. She looked at him suspiciously and asked, Why do you ask this? My exam is finished tomorrow. Why don't we go to Gaofun for a couple of days and go back on the 20th? I didn't have the chance to accompany you during the youth tournament. Lu Qing suggested excitedly. After the youth tournament, he had planned to date his little fairy girl in Gaofun for a couple of days. However, he was summoned to Moshang by Gizershur. Yenjika looked up and replied in a light tone. Yes, I am. Okay. During the New Year's Day holiday, she and Cheng didn't go out for a date because of the exam. Seeing Yenjika agree without hesitation, Lu Qing was very excited. He hurriedly said, Let's sit over there. I'll change the tickets and book a hotel. You can ask Gu Shuang if she has any good recommendations for Gaofun. Okay. Yenjika took out a tissue and handed it to her boyfriend. After cleaning up, they sat down next to each other and started to work. Suddenly, Yenjika hesitated and said, Cheng Shuang said that her house is empty and she invited us to stay there. She was used to calling her best friends by their nickname in front of Lu Qing. That's not good. I feel uncomfortable. Lu Qing subconsciously found a reason to object. Yenjika tapped on the screen and keyboard a few times. She turned her head and looked at her boyfriend with a faint smile. She puffed up her cheeks and snorted. Cheng, you've changed. You weren't like this before. What's changed? Lu Qing was confused, his face full of confusion. You wouldn't answer like this before. You would say, Do you want to go? If you want to go, then let's stay at Gu Shuang's house. Yenjika smiled and raised her chin. Her long white down jacket made her look very pretty. Lu Qing was almost speechless. He laughed and said, I'm just giving you my opinion. I'm not making a decision. In the end, I still have to listen to you. Yenjika combed her long black hair that was blown by the wind and snorted. I think you have a ghost in your heart. For some reason, when she said have a ghost in my heart, she suddenly blushed. She pretended to look to the side and changed the topic. Actually, I'm so stupid. Why did I ask Shuang what good recommendations there are in Gaofun? Why? She doesn't know these? That's impossible. Lu Qing blurted out in surprise. That's not it. Think about it. If I told her that I was going to Gaofun with you instead of sleeping in her house, What would she think? She would definitely think the wrong way. How embarrassing. Yenjika pouted and explained with slight annoyance. A girl's mind is really full of twists and turns. Luqing thought for a while and said, "Why don't you sleep in her house and I'll stay in a hotel outside? Or tell her that your period is here." According to Yenjika's recent cycle, it would be tomorrow. Yenjika pursed her lips and tilted her head. She suddenly burst into laughter, as if hundreds of flowers were blooming in front of Luqing. Her eyes were gentle and her dimples were enchanting. "I've already told Shuang that. Already told Gu Shuang about my period?" Luqing's mouth was half open. He was both angry and amused. I was almost tricked by Yenjika again. "Humph. You asked me to ask her. You made me laugh so much," Yenjika said with a red face. "That little girl Gu Shuang actually asked me to take precautions and asked me when I had sex with Cheng." Without waiting for an answer, she said, Shuang said she would treat us to a meal at a club. The dishes there are in the top 3 in Gaofan." "Okay." Luqing agreed easily. He handed the phone to the girl and said, 2 rooms with big beds, Mingqi International Hotel." He had a good impression of this 5-star hotel. "Let's share a room." Yenjika hesitated for a while, and then blushed when she saw Luqing's surprised eyes. She turned her head and said, "You will definitely use the excuse of rubbing my belly to squeeze into a room. Won't you? Won't you?" Yes. I'll definitely do that." Luqing smiled and gave her a way out. Of course he did think so. If you want to squeeze into one room, it's a waste to book 2 rooms. Yenjika had an expression of "I was right, wasn't I?" But she was biting her lips lightly and looking at the night sky with a bright moon and few stars. After the exam on the 17th, Luqing had a lunch with Zhao Chong, Kai Zongming, Qiu Zhigao and others. In the afternoon, he and Yenjika set off on their journey back to Xing province. But their destination was not Xiushan, but Gaofun. They arrived at 7 p.m. and met Gu Shuang, who was dressed fashionably in black. They went to the private club near Weiyang Park in Gaofun with her. The clubhouse was luxuriously decorated and illuminated by bright lights. The style of the clubhouse exuded the word luxury. Nouveau riche style. Yenjika commented in Luqing's ear in a low voice. "As long as the dishes are good." Luqing smiled back. Gu Shuang, who was watching them from the side, said in annoyance, "Can you two stop showing off your love every second? You have to understand the feelings of a lovelorn child." In front of her was a waiter who led the way. "Lovelorn? You dumped him, didn't you? How many times have you dumped him?" Yenjika teased her best friend. At this time, Luqing noticed that many of the guests passing by were martial artists with vigorous qi and blood. Some of them were even introverted. They were in groups of 3 to 5 and seemed to know each other. After passing through the hall, they went somewhere. So many people today? Gu Shuang also noticed something was wrong. This was a private club. The waiter smiled sweetly and said, "Miss Gu, this is a gathering of the martial arts circle in Gaofun. As you know, our boss is very close to the martial arts circle." A gathering of the martial arts circle in Gaofun? Gu Shuang glanced at Luqing subconsciously. Her best friend's boyfriend was the champion of the youth tournament. It's almost the new year. Every circle will have a gathering. The waiter kept his mouth shut and didn't say more. It's almost the new year? There's still half a month to go. Gu Shuang shook her head in confusion. At this moment, they heard a loud chatter. Looking back, they saw a group of martial artists coming in from the entrance of the club. They were surrounding an exceptionally handsome young man, and were talking about something. This young man was no stranger to Luqing. He was Zhang Zhutong of the Divine Fire Club. Oh, it's a small world. Luqing couldn't help but laugh secretly. This scene was very similar to the first time he met Zhang Zhu. Both of them were watching from the perspective of a bystander. However, that was then, and this was now. His mentality and feelings were completely different from the last time he met Zhang Zhu. Zhang Zhutong listened to the people around him with a smile on his face. Occasionally, he would turn his head and say a few words. Suddenly, he seemed to have sensed something and turned his head subconsciously. He was surprised to see a familiar face and the figure he couldn't forget standing quietly in the dim light. Facing his gaze, Lu Qing smiled slightly and nodded. Chapter 344. Lu Qing nodded and turned around leisurely. He held Yanjika's hand and continued to follow the waiter. Lu Qing didn't know much about the martial arts circle in Gaofun, so he didn't need to greet them or delay the late dinner. Brother Zhutong, what are you looking at? Beside Zhang Zhutong, a pretty girl with flat bangs asked curiously. She moved her head closer and followed Zhang Zhutong's line of sight. However, all she saw was a couple holding hands and disappearing around the corner. Apart from the girl's beautiful back, there was nothing special about her. No, nothing. Zhang Zhutong withdrew his gaze and gave a negative answer subconsciously. The others didn't care about this little episode. They still surrounded him, chatting and performing. Zhang Zhutong walked a few steps and couldn't help but look back, even though he knew the girl had already left. He's back. It's winter vacation now. But why didn't he come back to Xiaoshan? What is he going to do in Gaofun? Is he just passing by, or is he trying to get involved? Under the warm light, the waiter set the table and filled the cups with tea. He pushed the door open and waited for the dishes to be served. Who are you kidding? How can there be a year-end party this early? Gu Shuang complained. She picked up her phone and dialed a number. You and Zhang Zhutong are quite faded. Yanjika took the opportunity to tease her boyfriend. Lu Qing deliberately sighed and said, "It's a small world." The two started to chat. After a few minutes, Gu Shuang ended the call. She raised her eyebrows and gossiped with great interest. I knew it's a year-end party for the martial arts circle in Gaofun. What kind of party is it? Yanjika asked cooperatively. Gu Shuang laughed. Gaofun is a sister city with the famous European city Brutale, right? The mayor of Brutale is here with people from all walks of life for a business visit, including the martial arts delegation. Accordingly, we have to organize some martial artists to receive them. The Divine Fire Club has a good relationship with the management, so they're in charge of this. What do you mean by our Gaofun city? Shuang, you've just moved to Gaofun a few years ago. Have you forgotten that you're from Xiaoshan? Yanjika laughed and teased her best friend before getting back to the topic. They're gathering people in the circle for this? Yes, this is a good thing. Maybe we can get some cooperation opportunities. Gu Shuang explained casually. She then urged excitedly. Cool. Why don't you ask your Cheng to join in the fun? He can show off in front of the foreigners. It's so. What? I'm not from Gaofun. Lu Qing couldn't help but laugh. He rejected Gu Shuang's suggestion without hesitation. Yanjika pursed her lips and chuckled. I've heard that Brutale is one of the origins of martial arts in Europe. There are many powerful masters everywhere. I'm sure there are many good fighters among the young people there. Don't you want to see the fighting skills of a foreign country? Kind of. But we'll have plenty of chances in the future. There's no need to join in this boring fun. Lu Qing explained his thoughts. The mainstream martial arts system in Europe and America was essentially the same as in China, but the details were different. Both systems focused on body refining and controlling the mind. However, they didn't have force concentration or body refining Big Dan. Instead, they took a different path. When they reached the physical invulnerability stage, they trained the root pulp internally and connected with heaven and earth. What do you mean by, we'll have plenty of chances in the future? Yanjika tilted her head and asked in confusion. Lu Qing grinned. When you study abroad, I'll definitely go there from time to time. Maybe I'll even stay for a while. There'll be plenty of chances to see foreign martial arts. You're thinking so far ahead. Yanjika's eyes lit up. Stop. Can you two stop showing off your love? Gu Shuang, who was ignored, raised her hand and said, Can't we have a nice chat? No. Lu Qing and Yanjika looked at each other and answered in unison. In a hall, Zhang Zhutong was thinking about the startled glance and Lu Cheng's sudden appearance in Gaofun's place. He was absent-minded for a moment until someone waved a hand in front of his eyes and pulled him back to reality. Brother Zhutong, what's wrong? Are you worried about tomorrow? A pretty girl with flat bangs asked with concern. Hearing this question, the other martial artists in the gathering all looked over. Not really worried. I'm more looking forward to it, Zhang Zhutong answered with a smile. This kind of martial arts exchange was different from the normal challenge tournament. They had to consider the issue of face. What the higher-ups meant was that it would not be good to lose too much, but it would not be good to win too much either. The selected martial artists had to be representative and hierarchical to ensure that they only had a slight advantage over the opponent. Yeah, I've only seen foreign martial arts competitions on the internet. I haven't really seen one yet. A martial artist beside them chimed in. Amidst the echoes, the pretty girl with flat bangs reminded him with concern. We don't have to worry about the inhuman mighty ones since the seniors will deal with them. But I heard that there's a talented young man named Oblak in the group. He's only 20 years old, but he's already as strong as a top professional 7th pin, or a weaker professional 6th pin fighter. The evaluation system abroad was different from that in China, so it was impossible to compare them directly by rank. After losing to Lu Cheng, Zhang Zhutong had been enduring hardships for half a year. He had made great progress in his martial arts and was considered to be one of the best in the 7th pin. However, after watching the battle between Lu Qing and Peng Liyun, he was shocked again. It took him 2 or 3 weeks to recover. When he confidently called for a gathering in the martial arts circle to welcome the Brutale delegation, he met Lu Qing unexpectedly. His confidence was shaken. I'll try my best. There's still a chance to win. Even if I lose, I won't lose too badly, Zhang Zhutong answered carefully. While they were discussing the details of the next day, in another room, Lu Qing and Yan Zhika were tasting the top 3 dishes in Xing province that Gu Shuang had mentioned. They felt that Lu Qing lived up to his reputation. They ate so much that they couldn't wait to finish everything. For example, the Kung Pao chicken. The meat was tender but not rigid. It was smooth and fragrant. After eating and drinking, they were driven back to the hotel by Gu Shuang and checked in. It was already dark. Lu Qing and Yan Zhika opened the door and turned on the lights, hand in hand. This was the first time they had slept in the same bed without another room as a cover. It was the first time they had slept in the same bed. The light was dim and the warmth was overflowing. They felt like a couple returning home together. Nowadays, the lights in hotels are getting dimmer and dimmer. You can't save electricity like this. Lu Qing exclaimed. Yan Zhika was about to say something when her expression changed slightly. She lowered her eyes and looked a little pained. You're on your period? Lu Qing asked with concern. Yes. Yan Zhika was used to discussing this kind of thing with her boyfriend. I'll go change my clothes, brush my teeth and wash my face first. Okay, I'll wash the pot first and make you some brown sugar ginger tea. Lu Qing's hands and feet quickly got busy. After Yan Zhika finished the tea, got into bed and curled up on her side, he quickly brushed his teeth, took a shower, changed into his pajamas, and lay down beside her. He put his hand over her thin clothes, slid a little into her pants and pressed it against her lower abdomen. You're quite self-aware. Yan Zhika praised him with a smile. She didn't feel any pain. Before her voice died away, she suddenly exclaimed, Cheng, why is your hand so warm? This is the breakthrough of my power of blaze. Ever since its second awakening, I've been tempering and controlling it. I want it to be used in daily life like the Frost's supernatural ability. Well, after a few months of hard work, I finally succeeded. How does it feel? Yeah, said Lu Qing proudly, showing off. It's meaningless to have a supernatural power without a domestic version. 32 likes. Yan Zhika slightly pursed her lips, with a faint smile on her face. Her voice became very soft. Cheng, where are we going to play tomorrow? Lu Qing was in a good mood after being praised. He smiled and said, 2 plans. First, we'll go to the wildlife park in the north of the city. Second, we'll take bus number 7, number 19, number 35, number 56 and number 79 to relax and wander through the most unique streets of Gaofan. We'll try the various delicacies along the way and slowly savor this city. I choose the second plan, Yan Zhika said without hesitation. It sounds fun, I knew it. Lu Cheng's heart was full of tacit understanding. While chatting and warming, Yan Zhika slowly fell asleep. Her brows were knitted sometimes, as if she was enduring the pain in her dream. Lu Qing tenderly reached out and smoothed her brows. As the night grew darker, he propped himself up and kissed her on the corner of her mouth. "Good night, my dear." Her delicate body fell into his arms, without any lust. The next morning, Luqing woke up on time. Looking at the dark sky outside the window, he felt the girl's body curled up in his arms. Breathing in the warm fragrance that pervaded the air, he only felt his heart was calm and peaceful, filled with joy. He hugged Yenjika tightly and suddenly saw her wake up. He heard her ask in confusion, "What time is it?" 5:30. "You go back to sleep. I'm going to do my morning exercise. I'll bring you breakfast when I come back." Luqing replied softly. Yenjika retreated a little reluctantly. Suddenly, she was stopped by something hard. Her body was slightly stiff. Luqing smiled embarrassedly and said, "Some reactions can't be controlled just because you know it. As long as you're healthy, you'll be like this in the morning. Not to mention when you have a little fairy sleeping beside you." He repeated what he said the day before. "I feel that you guys are so weird." Yenjika softened her body and muttered. She struggled to get up and said, "I'm going to do my morning exercise too. It doesn't hurt as much." Just as they were kissing and saying good morning to each other, the delegation from the famous European city of Brutale arrived at the airport in Gaofun. Since it was the weekend, there weren't many commuters. Even though there were quite a few old people, the bus wasn't crowded. Luqing put in a coin and held his little fairy's hand. They found a seat at the back of the bus and sat down. The bus swayed in Gaofun as it traveled through the city. The scenery on both sides of the bus gradually changed from the original high-rise buildings to the past. Buildings built in the last century appeared in front of Luqing and Yenjika's eyes. These were all factory areas of enterprises in the past. Later, when the factories moved out, they used the vacated land to build a residential area for employees. Luqing had done his homework. He pointed at the scenery outside the window and said to the girl, "There is a university and a high school nearby. It's quite lively around here. Let's go eat a private home cuisine." "Private home cuisine?" Yenjika asked in surprise. Private home cuisine for breakfast? When it came to dates, she wasn't the type to simply enjoy them. After the first few times, when Luqing was making plans, she would help to look over and give her own opinions. She was very involved. However, last night, her stomach really hurt so badly that she didn't have the energy to discuss. "My private home cuisine is in quotation marks. You'll know when we get there," Luqing said with a smile. The number 7 bus stopped at the bus stop. He hurriedly pulled Ku up and said, "We're here. It's time to get off." Yenjika was full of curiosity and expectation. She followed Luqing like a little deer with innocent eyes. They got off the bus with light steps, crossed the crosswalk, and entered an old residential area. In the residential area, Luqing led her around and around, asking passers-by where building number 4 was from time to time. After passing row after row of buildings, they finally found their well-hidden destination. There was no elevator here. They walked along the corridor and came to the second floor. They saw the door on the left open and smelled the alluring aroma from inside. "Noodle house?" Yenjika sniffed and breathed in the smell in the air. Yes. This old lady used to be the chef of Gaoyan Noodle House. She retired and moved here with her husband. Under the encouragement of her children, she bought the house opposite and started a noodle house without a signboard. Well, there are many similar places in the surrounding residential areas, mainly for students and teachers who don't like to eat in the cafeteria. It's impossible to find it without a familiar guide. Luqing introduced the private home cuisine in front of them. Gaoyan Noodle House was a time-honored restaurant in Gaofun. It was the kind of restaurant that was recommended by tourists. Unfortunately, it got worse and worse. The locals didn't like to go there anymore. Only tourists could coax them. Yenjika opened her eyes wide and blurted out, "How did you find it?" They didn't think about where they would end up in the end, nor did they think about the purpose of the next stop or what they would eat later. They let go of their minds and wandered around leisurely, coming and going slowly. From time to time, they would put their heads together and take a selfie. the commercial district, a park, a bridge by the river, a Buddhist temple. Unconsciously, they wandered around a lot of places and decided to have lunch at the next restaurant they saw. Lu Cheng and Yenjika passed through the alley and came to the main street. They saw a cafe at the same time. Cafe? Do you want to eat there? Lu Cheng asked with a smile. Why not? There's food in the cafe. Yenjika answered with a relaxed body and mind. The cafe's business was quite bad, and the environment was not bad. Lu Cheng and Yenjika ordered a lot of food and ate happily. They were surprised to find that the quality was quite good. When Lu Cheng was paying the bill, Yenjika put her hands on the glass counter and casually asked the proprietress, "Your family is doing well. Why is your business so average?" The proprietress was a very charming lady. She smiled bitterly and said, "I don't know. Maybe the residents here don't like the Western style. Do you live nearby?" "No." Yenjika answered in a light tone. "Then are you here for business?" The proprietress had plenty of time to chat, because the business was bad. "No, we're just passing by," Yenjika said with a smile. "Okay." The proprietress confirmed that Lu Cheng had paid the bill and asked casually, "Just passing by. Where are you going?" "Where are we going?" Lu Cheng and Yenjika were stunned for a moment. Then they turned their heads and looked at each other. "We don't know." After saying this, the two of them held hands and turned to walk to the door. "Where are we going?" The proprietress was at a loss, watching their backs disappear into the street outside. Lu Cheng and Yenjika got on and off the bus casually without thinking about the past or the future. They enjoyed the purest, most carefree and most leisurely present moment. In the vast sea of people, they only felt that they had each other. Wherever they went, there was beauty and certainty. The clouds were leisurely, and the bus was swaying. Lu Cheng and Yenjika were sometimes quiet, and sometimes excited, walking freely in Gaofun. When the lights were turned on, they held back their laughter, and got on the bus again. They didn't know where they were going. The reason why they held back their laughter was that the restaurant they chose was very bad, which left a deep impression on them. However, even if it was a failure, it was still a happy thing to eat together. "Where are we now?" Lu Cheng looked at the darkened scenery outside the window and asked. "How would I know?" Yenjika answered with a smile. Suddenly, her eyes lit up as she saw a familiar building in the distance. The Beetle Stadium. Gaofun Martial Arts Stadium. "Ah, after a long day, we're finally here. What a coincidence!" Lu Cheng exclaimed in surprise. "The lights are on inside, so there's probably a competition. Here, he won the first championship in his life." "Yes, yes." Yenjika nodded happily. She pulled Lu Cheng to the back door of the bus and waited for the next stop. "Let's go. I'll treat you to the competition," she said cheerfully with a raised voice. In the Gaofun Martial Arts Stadium, the lights were bright and the atmosphere was heavy. Zhang Zhutong looked solemnly at the arrogant Oblak in the arena. His blonde hair fluttered in the wind as he walked up the stone steps. Chapter 346. So annoying. It's not open to the public. Yenjika pouted as she tried to buy a ticket but failed. Lu Cheng glanced at the gate guarded by security guards and encouraged her with a smile. "Do you want me to lead you to do something bad? Find a place to crawl in? What kind of competition is not open to the public?" "No, I'm a law-abiding good kid." Yenjika had come here on a whim. Seeing that she couldn't enter to watch the competition, she gave up the idea. She rolled her eyes and said, "There is a dessert shop here that is very good. Shuang and I have tried it. Their feng shui is very good. Come on, let me take you there." Lu Cheng said without thinking, "You can't eat cold food during your period, right? I can watch you eat it." Yenjika raised her chin with a smile. "And there's cake and stuff. All right then. Lead the way, big sister." Lu Cheng had forgotten his original purpose, and said with a smile on his face, "Today was a casual day. Follow your heart and follow your fate. Oblak wins. Oblak wins. Oblak wins." Similar words echoed in the stadium again and again, making the selected audience more and more depressed. However, they still had to pluck up their spirits and cheer for their opponent in line with the friendship between the two cities. Zhang Zhutong's body was still trembling, and his face was pale. It seemed that he had not only consumed a lot of energy, but also suffered a certain injury. He broke free from the nightmare of failure and glanced at the rostrum. Governor Luo Zhong, Mayor Chao Jincheng, and the others looked gloomier than the other. Zhang Zhutong's heart sank. He could only hope that the other fighters could defeat their strong opponents and save his face. Even if he couldn't win, he couldn't lose miserably. However, he also knew that the possibility of his wish coming true was very slim. It was all Oblak's fault for not following the rules. He actually fought 3 matches in a row. Not only did he defeat Han Jifei and Qiu Shan, but after a long battle, he even managed to injure himself with a single move. Originally, it was supposed to be a different fighter after each match. Now that the strongest fighters on his side had failed, the Gaofan martial arts group would have to face the following fighters from Brutale. Zhang Zhutong gave up the starting position and prepared to fight against the third young fighter from Brutale's delegation. He wanted to win and keep the situation under control. However, he encountered an unreasonable guy. The most likely possibility was that all the young fighters on his side would be defeated. Zhang Zhutong thought bitterly. Oblak actually had a freakish physical strength that exceeded his own level of physical strength. Below the inhuman stage, abnormal physical strength is too advantageous. Another martial artist beside him sighed. Hearing this, Zhang Zhutong wanted to respond with a polite smile. But no matter how hard he tried, he could not squeeze out a smile. Is it delicious? Yenjika rested her chin on one hand and looked at Lu Qing with sparkling eyes. Lu Qing unhurriedly scooped a spoonful of Snow White and put it in his mouth. He savored it for a few seconds before saying, "It's delicious. It smells like milk powder when I was a kid. But this one is cold and tastes better. I've appraised it. It's not bad." Yenjika smiled proudly. She poked a piece of cake with her spoon and ate it slowly. Both of them hadn't eaten enough because of the terrible dinner, but now they had a good appetite. Outside the window, the city lights were shining brightly, reflecting their shadows on the glass. The night was getting darker. At the gate of the Beetle Stadium, the security guards made way for them. Governor Luo Zhong, Mayor Chao Jincheng of Gaofun, and others accompanied Mayor Brutale Dawkins and his entourage out. They chatted politely as they waited for the vehicles to approach. At the edge of the delegation, the tall Oblak stretched his arms and legs and looked around casually. His blonde hair shone brilliantly under the light, just like the magnificent view of the sea at sunrise. Coupled with his handsome facial features and aggressive fighting style, he was widely known as the Son of the Sun. "The young martial artists of Gaofan are mediocre," said the black-haired Charles beside Oblak in the Brutale language. Oblak replied with a smile. "I heard that this is only the second-class city in China." He was implying that he agreed with Charles's assessment. "I'm disappointed." The brown-haired Johnny spread his hands. "To be honest, I feel the same way. After 3 rounds, it's still not enough. In Chinese it's like..." Oblak flexed his arms and said in a foreign language, "Enough. Not. Enough. Not. Enough." The translator beside them listened awkwardly. He didn't know what to say, so he just maintained a professional smile. Not far away, Zhang Zhutong watched them talk arrogantly. Although he didn't understand what they were saying, he could still feel the contempt in their words. His mood became even more gloomy and depressed. He glanced at the governor Luo Zhong and the mayor of Gaofun Chao Jincheng. They were both forcing smiles. "It's getting late. Let's go. There won't be any more buses." Lu Qing pointed at the night sky outside. Yenjika followed his movement and looked around. She nodded lightly and said, "Okay." Today's random trip started with the bus. Of course, both of them wanted to end with the bus. After paying the bill with their phones, they pushed the door open and felt the chill of the winter night. Their spirits were instantly refreshed. Walking along the edge of the stadium, they strolled slowly to the bus stop in front of them. They only glanced at the hustle and bustle at the gate. Yenjika was in a good mood. She waved her hands and skipped along. Lu Qing followed her at a steady pace. "What a beautiful day." The girl suddenly paused and looked up at the faint stars in the sky covered by the light. She closed her eyes and praised as if she was sleep-talking. The smile on her face was faint but didn't fade away. I think so too. Lu Qing held her hand. Yenjika opened her eyes and said as if she hadn't had enough. It would be perfect if there was a firework ending at the end. Don't buy it. I mean, it's up to fate. Lu Qing thought for a while and chuckled. He suddenly pulled back his hand and pointed behind the girl. Look, there it is. Yenjika was surprised and happy. She turned around abruptly and looked behind her. However, the night sky was still and the lights were quiet. There were no fireworks. She was stunned. When she was about to speak, she suddenly saw a ball of crystal white light fly into the air. Then, a red and violent fireball chased after it. Bang! The cold light exploded first and ice crystals fell. Bang! The flame exploded and shone on the ice crystals, making them reflect the clear light. In the air, the fireworks bloomed. The flowing light was dreamy and beautiful, illuminating the faces of Lu Qing and Yenjika. See, tonight's ending fireworks? Lu Qing laughed. Yenjika's astonishment turned into surprise. The fireworks reflected in her eyes were so beautiful that people didn't dare to look directly at them. She bit her pink lips with her pearly white teeth and said with sparkling eyes, "Chung, what should I do? I want to kiss you." The fireworks attracted the attention of the crowd at the gate. Oblak was stunned for a moment. Then his face lit up with joy. Superpower, a good superpower. He looked at the corner of the square not far away and saw Lu Qing and Yenjika, who were dating. His eyes flashed and he said excitedly, "I'll find that superpower user and spar with him. Just as well, I haven't had enough fun before." Thump, thump, thump. He strode forward and dashed towards Lu Qing at an extremely fast speed. The translator in the suit was shocked and stood there dumbfounded. He didn't know whether to follow or what. Oblak's teacher, the leader of the martial arts delegation, Mason Walker, shook his head and laughed. He instructed Janice beside him, "You go be the referee. Don't let Oblak hurt his opponent. This would affect the friendship between the two cities." The bear-like Janice didn't dare to delay. He stretched his long legs and chased after Oblak. Charles, Johnny, and the others followed with great interest, intending to watch from the sidelines. That superpower user was just trying to please his girlfriend on a date, and Oblak had set his sights on him. What bad luck! Zhang Zhutong, who had noticed their movements, looked blankly in the direction of the fireworks. His pupils suddenly shrank. Him? Lu Qing, who was waiting for his little fairy to initiate a kiss, felt the ground shake. He instinctively stepped forward and shielded Yenjika behind him. He saw a young blonde, blue-eyed foreign man running towards him with heavy footsteps. He felt several explosive points, exploding on his wrists, arms, and torso. These explosive points seemed to connect into a strange tree. Strong, very strong. Lu Qing squinted his eyes and got into a stance. In his mind, he visualized a frozen river, a snowy plain, and a huge red sun hanging high in the sky. Tisk spar spar. Oblak shouted in choppy Chinese. Spar. Lu Qing took a deep breath and let the huge red sun fall from the sky and crash into the ice. Against a strong opponent, he had to give it his all. At that moment, Oblak's body suddenly expanded. He swung his fist in a condescending manner. Boom. The huge sun and the frozen river disappeared at the same time. Both fire and ice were extinguished by Lu Qing's fist. A mutated version of severe warning. Bam. Lu Qing blocked Oblak's hammer strike with a punch. At the point of contact, something seemed to collapse into a point, turning into a vortex. It stuck to Oblak's fist and neutralized the terrifying force. Boom. The vortex exploded, shooting out violent energy and infusing it into Oblak's body. Thud, thud, thud. Oblak took 3 steps back and fell limply in front of the referee Janice. His eyes were wide open, but his body couldn't move for a moment. Thump. The sound of his strong body falling to the ground echoed in the surroundings. Charles and the others were stunned. Mason and Walker were stunned. Dawkins, Chao Jincheng, and the others were attracted to this scene as well. With one punch, Oblak, who had just dominated the martial arts arena, was knocked down? And he couldn't even stand up? He had just found a passerby superpower user to spar with. What's going on? Yenjika poked her pretty oval face out and asked blankly. I don't know either. He said it was a spar. Lu Cheng was equally confused. Seeing that the group of foreigners didn't make a move, he didn't want to bother with them. He held the girl's hand and continued walking to the bus stop. A spar? Why would he suddenly want to spar with you? Yenjika asked, puzzled. What's the point of a spar with a guy who can be knocked down with one punch? Lu Cheng answered seriously, he's actually quite strong. It's just that his body is almost at its limit. Why would he want to spar with you when his body is almost at its limit? I don't get it either. I don't either. I can't understand what's going on in this foreigner's mind. Yeah, maybe this is the generation gap caused by the difference in culture and education. The two walked further and further away until they were out of sight. Seeing that the dating couple was about to reach the bus stop, the translator was in a dilemma. He didn't know whether to tell the Brutale delegation about their discussion. What are they talking about? Chapter 347. The cold wind whistled past. Dawkins shivered and broke free from the indescribable feeling. He turned to look at Chao Jincheng, the mayor of Gaofen City. Chao Jincheng didn't show any abnormality. His expression relaxed as he smiled faintly. Young people nowadays, those who are capable, are all very strong. They don't like to participate in social events like ours. The beautiful and dignified female translator hesitated for a few seconds, but in the end, she relayed the entire sentence to Dawkins and Mason Walker. She also clearly highlighted the two main points that Mayor Chow emphasized. First, the martial arts exchange match is part of the social event. It doesn't matter whether we win or lose. We don't care at all. Second, the young fighters here who are really capable have bad tempers. They didn't participate in the social event. If Chao Jincheng had said this before, it would have been a case of putting on a false front. But now it was just right, just right. After hearing the translation, Mason Walker's expression changed slightly. Dawkins' smile stiffened a little. The whole delegation's high spirits and arrogance had dissipated a lot. Fortunately, several luxury buses arrived in time, allowing them to smoothly change the topic. They waved goodbye in a friendly manner. Oblak, who was supported by others, finally recovered. He murmured to himself, that punch was very magical, very, very magical. The Brutale delegation looked at each other and pushed Oblak into the bus. Chao Jincheng didn't show his confusion until the convoy was far away. He turned to Wang Mingkong, the person in charge of Shenhua Club. Who was that? Wang Mingkong was a few steps behind and didn't see the fight. He was also confused and quickly looked at Zhang Zhutong. Zhang Zhutong sighed faintly and said, that's right. It was Lu Cheng. Lu Cheng? Han Jifei and the others finally understood why that back was so familiar. Lu Cheng. The champion of the provincial youth tournament. Luo Zhong, the governor in charge of martial arts affairs, recalled who Lu Cheng was. No wonder, no wonder. Chao Jincheng was relieved and couldn't help but sigh. This young man is so considerate. Lu Cheng was from Xiaoshan, and his household registration had been moved to Songcheng. He didn't work in Gaofen, so he had nothing to do with this city. If he showed up in the exchange match and was found out by the Brutale delegation, it would be very embarrassing. Fraud would affect the business cooperation between the two sides. Now that he had casually passed by and provoked Oblak to take the initiative to attack, the nature of the matter was completely different. This young man really has a sense of pride for his province. Mayor Chow thought to himself. As for the possibility that Lu Cheng just happened to pass by, he didn't even consider it. Haha, how is that possible? Inform all the relevant people in charge. If the Brutale delegation asks about what happened just now, tell them that they didn't recognize the young martial artist, Chao Jincheng said to his secretary. Listening to their conversation, Zhang Zhutong looked at Han Jifei and the others with a complicated expression. From their eyes he could see that they were sighing. At this moment, the words Lu Cheng had said to him in the semifinals suddenly flashed through his mind. I don't need others to judge my qualifications. 1 year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, I hope you'll still have the courage and confidence to say what you just said. His words were still ringing in his ears. Only half a year. Lu Cheng and Yan Zhika got off the bus at the opposite side of Mingqi International Hotel. Swinging their intertwined hands, Lu Cheng and Yan Zhika slowly walked through the pedestrian walkway into the hotel lobby, ending this casual date and the dreamy journey of the day. While Lu Cheng was taking a shower, Yan Zhika had changed into a cute set of pajamas. Bunny ears dangled on her chest, swaying back and forth. She sat on the bed barefooted, picked up the vibrating phone, and chose to answer. Hello Shuang Shuang Shuang. Why are you so late? Cuckoo, your Cheng is not honest. Gu Shuang said directly. What's wrong with him? Yan Zhika asked blankly. Gu Shuang ground her teeth and said. Your Cheng swore in front of me yesterday that he wouldn't join the Brutale delegation. But today he went to the Beetle Arena and beat up their new fighting star. Humph, a guy who doesn't keep his word. Ah, that's the Brutale delegation. No wonder there's a strong foreigner. Yan Zhika came to her senses and explained with a smile. He didn't mean it. We were on a casual trip today. We got on whichever bus we saw and got off wherever we wanted. Finally, we came to the Beetle Arena. And it was that foreign fighter who took the initiative to challenge Cheng. Yo, you two are quite romantic. Gu Shuang said, half sighing and half joking. Then she said, what a coincidence. The fighter your Cheng knocked down with one punch is called Oblak. He just defeated Zhang Zhutong, Han Jifei and Qiu Shan in the Beetle Arena, making those uncles, aunts and grandparents lose face. I see. Cheng is saying that the foreign fighter's physical condition is close to the limit. Yan Zhika confirmed the details. But this guy is famous for his abnormal physical strength. I think he's close to the inhuman stage, just like your Cheng. Gu Shuang revealed more information and said with a grin, bring your Cheng to the party and make me proud. I have to let those guys know that I know such a powerful genius warrior. Go find one yourself. Yan Zhika scolded her with a smile. Gu Shuang chuckled and said, well, I have a new target today. I'm going to flirt with him. Can't you just be in a good relationship? What's the point of changing boyfriends? Approaching the bed, he looked at Yan Zhika, who was lying down obediently. He chuckled. Who said she wanted to kiss me before? It was all interrupted by that guy. Not me, not me, not me. Yan Zhika shook her head like a rattledrum with a smile in her eyes. Since you don't want to admit it, I'll kiss you. Lu Qing climbed onto the bed. Since you won't smile at me, I'll give you one. In the hotel where the Brutale delegation was staying, Oblak sat on the sofa in the lobby, lost in thought. Oh Oblak, why are you like this? You fought 3 matches before you went to challenge that superpower guy. Come, have a few drinks and you'll forget. Black-haired Charles walked over with 2 glasses of wine. Johnny chimed in. My cute, beautiful, and smart little Sonny told me that you can't see anything from a sudden encounter. Have a good night's sleep. The sun will rise again tomorrow. Oblak suddenly stood up and rushed to the elevator. He went up to the 25th floor and knocked on the door of his teacher, Mason Walker. What's the matter? Mason Walker looked at his student with eyes as blue as the sea. Teacher, I want to challenge that superpower guy for real. Oblak blurted out. Mason Walker pondered for a few seconds and said, we've asked the gentlemen in Gaofun. They didn't recognize that superpower guy. Or rather, they didn't want to tell us. Besides, we're only here for a few days. But Oblak still wanted to fight for something. Mason Walker smiled and said, such a powerful superpower guy will become more and more famous. As long as you're still growing, you'll definitely meet him one day. The martial arts world of China was also very important to foreign countries, but most of their attention was on the top professional competitions and title matches. I hope so. Oblak sighed dejectedly. Chapter 348. On the afternoon of the 20th, Lu Cheng and Yan Zhika arrived at Gaofan East Railway Station and took the train back to Xiushan. After the casual date, they went to the wildlife park yesterday and observed the tiger form, monkey form, and other postures up close. They watched a few panda cubs basking in the sun and left a lot of photos that carried beautiful memories. This morning, they didn't go anywhere. After returning from their morning exercise, they stayed in their room. Sometimes they kissed each other, and sometimes they leaned against each other to watch shows on their tablets. At this time, the Brutale delegation's trip entered its third day. Oblak was invited to participate in the Gaofan martial arts activities, but he was disappointed because he didn't find the superpower user who defeated him. The train sped through the mountains and across the fields. Lu Qing was sharing a funny post with Yan Zhika when he received a call from Wu Ting, a high school freshman with a ponytail, from the VIP class during the summer vacation. Hello. Lu Qing answered the call in confusion. Sir Lu, when are you coming back to Xioshan? Wu Ting asked in a light tone. What's up? I don't think I'll work part-time in the martial arts club during the winter vacation. Lu Qing thought the girl wanted to continue her martial arts training. It was not that he didn't want to earn money, by the way. After school started, he had no income except for the living expenses provided by his family. Although he had fewer dates due to the tight schedule, his expenses in other aspects had increased. For example, Queen of Thought and the others had worked out a prescription for the internal practice of the swordsman formula after a period of study and mastery. Geyser had passed it to him. There were many similar things. After deducting the fixed amount provided by the Ice God sect every month, the rest was still very valuable. In just a few months, Lu Qing had spent nearly 80,000 yuan. The strength of a weak sixth pin was not something that could be obtained easily. Plus the expenses of dates, gifts and hotels, Lu Qing's savings had dropped below 200,000 yuan. Since he couldn't find a source of income, it was inevitable that he would want to work part-time to teach students. However, the martial arts club would be closed during the Chinese New Year. There was no such thing as a winter vacation class. Hearing Lu Qing's answer, Wu Ting didn't feel disappointed. Instead, she said happily, "Can't I find you for no reason?" "Yes," Lu Qing said half-jokingly. Wu Ting was speechless for a moment. After a dozen seconds of silence, she smiled bitterly. "I just realized that Sir Lu has a sharp tongue. It's not me who wants to find you. It's my dad who wants to find you. Why is your dad looking for me?" Lu Qing was even more confused. Wu Ting giggled and said, "My father owns a martial arts supplies company. He wants to invite you to endorse their shoes, so that they can expand beyond Xing province and into the whole country." Endorsement? Lu Qing was shocked. How could he get an endorsement at his level? Wasn't it said that only mighty ones with physical invulnerability were qualified to have a share of this cake? Yin Zhika was attracted by their conversation. She turned her head and blinked her eyes in confusion. "My dad said that, Sir Lu, you have a bright future ahead of you. Yes, it's measured, not bright. You will definitely reach the peak of martial arts in the future," Wu Ting explained excitedly. "Our Sir Lu is amazing." Lu Qing replied conscientiously. "That's a matter for the future. No one dares to guarantee anything. If your father asks me to endorse him now, he will most likely suffer a loss. No, Sir Lu, you have a lot of attention now. We all watched the battle between you and Peng Liyun. My dad said that as a heavenly son of the era and a native of Xing province, you can definitely help him open up more markets in the province. And even open up channels outside the province." Wu Ting repeated. "Anyway, you don't need to do anything. You don't need to shoot commercials. You just need to wear the martial arts shoes that we specially made for you every time in the challenge tournament." Then it broke into pieces. Lu Qing said with cold humor. Wu Ting was speechless again. After hearing what the people around her said, she giggled and said, "What are you afraid of? Which martial arts shoes are not like this? As long as our design is cool enough, as long as you wear it well enough, as long as it can last a few rounds, there will be plenty of fashionistas like us who will buy it." She made fun of herself without any hesitation. "This is too sudden. I'm a little confused. I'll think about it and give you a reply." Lu Qing did not agree impulsively. Wu Ting smiled and said, "What my dad means is that after you return to Xioshan, you can come to the company and talk to him face to face. If you agree, he will directly test the data and make the most suitable martial arts shoes for you." "Okay, I'll be back in Xioshan in the afternoon. When will your dad be in the company these days?" Lu Qing decided to listen to the specific terms. "Well, my dad will be on a business trip tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. He's in the company today. How about you go to see him before 6 p.m.? Wu Ting asked tentatively. Okay, send me the address. I'll let you know when I go out. Lu Cheng said after thinking about it. Wu Ting smiled and said, Yes, Sir Lu. After hanging up the phone, Lu Cheng looked at Yen Zhika who was beside him. He didn't need to repeat himself. The girl already knew what was going on. She pursed her lips and said with a smile, You already have an endorsement contract. My Cheng is so awesome. I don't know the specific conditions, but I guess the price won't be too high. Lu Cheng was happy, but he still kept his mind. With his current strength and level, it was true that he could not get a good price. But for him, who had an unstable income every year, it was a good supplement. Yen Zhika rolled her eyes and said with concern, Even if it's a good deal, don't rush to sign the contract. Take it back and let the lawyer have a look first in case there's a trap. Well, not many people dare to cheat you, but some people are rascals. They're just a pile of sh*t. Even if they can't cheat you, they can still disgust you. Yes, Coach Yan. Lu Cheng answered happily. Yen Zhika pursed her lips and smiled. She suddenly sighed and said, I can't buy you martial arts shoes in the future. No, I'll only wear them in the competition. For training, the Love brand is still the best. I've only worn the first pair of martial arts shoes you gave me a few times. It's still brand new. Lu Cheng took the opportunity to show off. Yen Zhika smiled and looked out of the window slightly proudly. It took only a little more than an hour to go from Gaofan to Xiushan by train. They soon saw the familiar scenery. The girl also received a call from Empress Dowager. They deliberately chose this train to arrive at the same time as the arrival time of one of the high-speed trains from Songqing to Xiushan. Okay, we'll be there soon. Yen Zhika hung up the phone and watched Lu Cheng unload the luggage. Her eyes became gentle, and she reached out to help him tidy up his clothes. After returning to Xiushan, they would be busy with the new year. Except for morning exercises, they would have less time to see each other. After getting off the train, they reluctantly parted at the arrival hall. Lu Cheng carried the luggage and went out of the station. He replied to the girl's message, and then called his mother. Mom, I'm here. Qifeng's background was very noisy. She said in a loud voice, Your dad and I are in the renovation business. We don't have time to buy groceries. You can go to the market by yourself and buy whatever you want. I'll cook for you when I come back. Alas, the new year is coming and the renovation workers are all thinking about home. You have to keep an eye on them and try to get the water and electricity ready before the new year. My dear mother, I've just come back and I'm already being ordered around. Lu Cheng laughed and shook his head, agreeing. After a long time of careful selection, Qifeng finally chose a house of 130 square meters. It had 3 bedrooms, 2 living rooms, and 2 bathrooms. It also came with a free entrance and a balcony. The total cost was more than 550,000 yuan after taxes and fees. Because it was the full payment, except for the 400,000 yuan Lu Cheng gave, the family was basically emptied. After 2 months, they finally had enough money to do the water and electricity. Qifeng, who had been bullied by borrowing money, didn't want to try again if it wasn't necessary. Lu Cheng got on the bus and staggered back to the neighborhood. Along the way, the uncles and aunties he met all greeted him warmly, saying things like, Oh, Cheng has made a name for himself. They praised him for remembering his parents' kindness and forking out money to buy a house for his family. Looking at the envious and sighing neighbors, Lu Cheng only had one thought in his mind. That was, how long has my mom been bragging about her son buying a house? How widely has she spread the news? When he approached the doorway, he met another acquaintance, Wang Su's father. Hello, Uncle Wang. Lu Cheng greeted him politely. Wang Su's father's body was a little hunched, and his hair was very white. He looked like he was in his 60s or 70s. He looked at Lu Cheng and laughed. Cheng, you're on vacation? You've done well. Your parents are enjoying life. Uncle Wang, don't say that. It's good enough to believe half of my mom's words. Lu Cheng scolded his mother. It's good enough to believe half of it. Wang Su's father sighed with emotion. He walked out of the unit and turned to the group of old men playing chess. Looking back, Lu Cheng watched his father's back disappear into the distance. He sighed with mixed feelings in his heart. When people take the wrong path, they're not the only ones who get hurt. Now that the limelight is completely over, I'll ask Uncle Xing to introduce me to visit Wang Su in prison. After calming himself down, he returned home, put down his backpack, picked up the basket, and went to the market. The last time he went there alone was when he was in the 5th grade of primary school. He didn't go there to buy groceries, but to find his mother. I'm a little nervous thinking about going to buy groceries by myself. Lu Qing sent a message to Yenjika with a smile. Yenjika sent an emoji with half of her mouth covered and whispered, I haven't been to the market before. Then I'm better than you. Lu Qing sent an emoji with arms akimbo. Humph, do you know how to bargain? Yenjika asked angrily. Nope. Do you know how to distinguish the quality of the meat? You should be able to tell a little. Can you tell if the food is watered? Nope. Can you pick out the good quality of the food? Nope. Lu Qing felt very guilty. He found that the identity of youth tournament champion was completely useless in the market. Can you tell if it's wild or domesticated? Yenjika asked persistently. Lu Qing replied with a text emoji, annoyed and amused at the same time. Classmate, you've killed the conversation. Ha ha ha. Yenjika sent an emoji of laughing. Hurry up and buy groceries. I'm waiting for your battle report. After entering the market, Lu Qing walked nimbly around the stands and randomly chose a pork stall. He asked the fierce-looking stall owner, How much is this pork rib? Well, I want to eat winter melon and pork rib soup tonight. After a fruitless bargaining, he looked at the stall owner who was chopping the pork rib and asked, Can I pay with my mobile phone? Yes, scan my QR code. The stall owner pointed at something on the side. It's so convenient to pay with mobile phone. I don't have to bring cash or change. Lu Qing scanned the QR code. When the phone recognized the QR code, he suddenly found that the stall owner's name was Past Events and Dreams with the Wind. So artistic. He looked up at the fierce-looking stall owner in astonishment. Looking at the shiny oil on his hand, he couldn't believe that such an artistic name belonged to him. Okay. Lu Qing paid the bill mechanically. The stall owner packed the pork rib and wiped his hands. He took a look at his phone and said, Yes, received. It's really him. Lu Qing's mouth twitched. He put the pork rib into the basket and went to another stall. After that, he met the fishmonger named Love You Forever and the vegetable seller named Abandoned Master. He refreshed his worldview and shared these things with Yenjika as jokes. At 3:30 p.m., he went out again after buying groceries and called a taxi according to the address given by Wu Ting. Chapter 349. Pingle District, Ingjin Building. When Lu Qing entered the lobby of the newly built office building, he enjoyed the attention of the security guards because he still looked like a student. However, he didn't care about it. Instead, he looked around with interest and observed the people in the office. He found that most of them were not wearing suits or high-heeled dresses. Most of them were wearing down jackets and overcoats. It was not time to get off work yet. When he entered the elevator, it was not crowded. On the left, there were two men talking about business. On the right, there was a girl with straight hair carrying cups of milk tea and cakes. The smell of perfume made him pinch his nose. If I didn't get the Jindan and didn't walk on the path of martial arts, maybe this would be my daily environment. Lu Qing sighed secretly. When he walked out of the elevator on the 10th floor, he saw the sign on the opposite wall. Zhaoji Martial Arts Equipment Company Limited. It's here. He turned left and came to the door. He saw a girl with long hair playing with her phone in boredom. Hello. He tried to call her. The girl at the front desk looked up and put down her phone quietly. She blurted out, Who are you looking for? As a receptionist of a company, she had a beautiful appearance and a sweet smile. However, her eyes were dull. I'm looking for Boss Wu. Lu Qing answered with a smile. Boss Wu? Which Boss Wu? The girl at the front desk came back to her senses and showed a puzzled expression. Boss Wu Wuqingui. Lu Qing said calmly. The girl at the front desk looked at him suspiciously and said, Do you have an appointment? The boy on the opposite side was pleasing to the eye. However, he looked younger than her and seemed to be a student. Why did he come to the company? To apply for an internship? But he didn't have to look for Boss Wu directly. Yes. Lu Qing nodded with a smile. Then let me ask. The girl at the front desk picked up the phone and dialed a number with uncertainty. Hello, Boss Wu. A guest is looking for you. Yes, he's very young. Okay. She looked at Lu Qing in surprise while talking on the phone. He really did have an appointment with Boss Wu. She put down the phone and said with a sweet smile, Boss Wu asked you to wait for a while. Boss Wu didn't say why, so I don't know. Sure. Lu Qing put his hands in his pockets and looked around leisurely, admiring the layout of Zhaoji Company. At this moment, he heard a rush of footsteps coming from afar. He subconsciously turned his head and saw a thin but capable middle-aged man rushing over. CEO Wu. The girl at the front desk stood up straight and shouted timidly. CEO Wu actually came out to greet him personally. Who was this guy? Wu Qinggui was wearing a suit and tie. He had a square face, thick eyebrows and big eyes. He walked up to Lu Qing with a smile, extended his arms, and warmly shook hands with him. Aya, you should have called me first when you arrived. Come. Come to my office. Chief Wu, you're too polite. It's not like I don't know how to find my own way. Lu Qing said calmly as he followed Wu Qinggui into the building. They passed through many offices and arrived at the innermost office, leaving the receptionist standing there in a daze for a long time. That's the general situation. Tingting should have told you everything, right? In the office at the reception sofa, Wu Qinggui repeated the endorsement. Then he picked up the teacup and took a sip to moisten his throat. Lu Qing smiled and said, Wu Ting did tell me, and I more or less understand what's going on. I just want to know the specific terms and conditions. Wu Qinggui asked his secretary to bring a sample contract and handed it to Lu Qing. The main part is 1 million for 3 years. You just need to wear the martial arts shoes provided by us when you participate in the competition. There are some additional terms and conditions, all of which are free money for you. Take a look first. Okay. Lu Qing flipped through the contract without batting an eyelid. 1 million for 3 years. It's much better than what I expected. I'm too embarrassed to talk about the price. In his opinion, it would be good enough for him to earn a few $100,000 a year endorsement fee. After all, most of the dance stage fighters didn't even have a chance. Plus, he didn't need to attend any events or shoot any commercials. He could earn money in passing. Lu Qing was dizzy from the professional terms and conditions as he flipped through the pages. It took him a lot of effort to understand. The additional terms mentioned by Wu Qinggui were indeed good stuff. The general idea was that he would get extra money according to the level of the competition he participated in. For example, in the university martial arts competition, the group matches were definitely not as popular as the quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals. Every step he took forward, the stage where he showed off his martial arts shoes would be fundamentally different. Therefore, the endorsement contract had different levels of rewards. According to the additional terms, the contract could be increased to more than 10 million for 3 years. However, Lu Qing felt that it was impossible to achieve because the biggest reward was to enter the top 32 of the 5 title matches. How could it be possible? Which one of the top 32 of the 5 title matches wasn't a physical invulnerability expert? According to his strength and current estimation of the speed of improvement, there was still a good chance that this contract could be increased to 1.5 million for 3 years. Lu Qing put down the paper in his hand and pondered. Boss Wu, can I take the contract back and take a look at it? I'll give you an answer in 2 days. That's right. I'm tempted. I'll go back and find a lawyer to study it. It's definitely the right choice to ask senior sister for advice. No problem. You can write down my email address and send it to me directly if you have any comments on the contract. Wu Qinggui agreed without hesitation. He picked up a pen and paper and wrote down an email address. After the discussion, he stood up and said with a smile, "Let me show you around my company. This is the core of my business recently. I'll help you measure the accurate data later, so that it'll be convenient for you to customize martial arts shoes suitable for your strength." Okay. Lu Qing didn't refuse. Under Wu Qinggui's guidance, he visited the design department and other places. Finally, he entered an office with a sci-fi design. This can be used to measure your strength. With this, it'll be easier for you to do the following things. Wu Qinggui instructed a professional designer to measure the length and width of Lu Cheng's feet, while pointing at the silver-white metal platform inlaid on the ground. After the designer finished, he smiled and raised his chin. Go and try it. Just stand on it, and exert your full strength. Lu Qing hesitated. Will it be damaged? Even I feel scared of my current explosive strength. Of course not. This is good stuff. I've asked a few professional ninth pin and mighty ones of dance stage to test it. Wu Qinggui smiled casually. Lu Qing was still worried. Is it really okay? No problem. It's my fault if it breaks. Wu Qinggui laughed. Okay. Lu Qing put on his socks and stepped on the silver-white metal platform. The technician adjusted the equipment and said, "It's done. You can start now." Under Wu Qinggui's expectant gaze, Lu Qing took a deep breath to balance his qi, blood, spirit and force. Then he spurted out his Dan force and pushed it against his feet. Clang! At the entrance of Zhaoji Company, the girl at the front desk felt dizzy and found that her feet were shaking. Earthquake! She was shocked and ran out. She saw her colleagues rushing out of various offices. At this time, the shaking had stopped. Everyone looked at each other for a few seconds. Go back, go back. Don't make any noise. The girl at the front desk calmed down and waved her hand. Similar scenes were happening on every floor of Yingjin building. In the test room, Lu Qing looked at the broken silver-white metal platform and looked up innocently. It seems to be broken. It's not just seems, it's real. It's completely broken. Wu Qinggui's mouth was half open, and his eyes were wide open as if he saw an alien. Is this the explosive strength of a professional sixth pin? It's like an earthquake just now. Boss Wu, you've been looking for professional eighth pin fighters of dance stage, right? Lu Qing pushed the blame. Yes. Wu Qinggui came back to his senses and smiled bitterly. This thing is useless. It's mine. He's almost at the inhuman stage. Lu Qing looked at his feet again and asked curiously, "Did you get any data?" "No," the technician said with a sad face. Wu Qinggui calmed down and smiled. "It's almost time to get off work. Let's go for a meal." Haha, it's my first day back home. I have to accompany my parents. Boss Wu next time. Lu Qing was still a little guilty. Okay. Wu Qinggui didn't insist. Lu Qing went back home and talked with Ko Qian for a while. Then he called his senior sister Shi Yuejian and told her about it. He took a picture of the contract and sent it to her according to her instructions. When it was dark, Shi Yuejian called back. "Little junior brother, there's no problem with this contract. It's just that the term is a little long. After 3 years, you'll have graduated from college and will be preparing for the top professional competitions. Your value will be completely different. It's a loss. Let's sign it for 2 years. 700,000 yuan for 2 years. If you feel embarrassed, let's sign it 2+1. After 2 years, they will have priority, but the conditions must be similar to others." "Okay, thank you, senior sister," Lu Qing said happily. At this time, the door opened. Qi Fang and Lu Jixing came back, looking tired. "Cheng, what are you talking about?" Qi Fang asked casually while changing her shoes. Lu Qing smiled. "A big contract. A big contract." Qi Fang smiled carelessly and walked into the kitchen. What kind of big contract could there be for a competition and prize money? Lu Qing didn't explain. He planned to surprise his mother when the deal was done, and the renovation cost was subsidized. Hee. I know how hard it is for your mother to do the renovation work. Lu Jixing sat down and leaned on the sofa. Lu Qing glanced at the kitchen and said, "Then let's go out and eat. Let's go out and eat." As soon as he finished speaking, Qi Fang shouted in the kitchen, "What kind of ribs did you buy?" "Just ribs." Lu Qing answered blankly. "What's the difference between ribs?" Qi Fang was both amused and annoyed. "Can't you pick a better place? You can eat it yourself if you have good teeth." Lu Qing, the champion of the youth tournament and the one who was negotiating the million-yuan contract, blinked and felt a little wronged. How would I know what place it was? Chapter 350. Ha 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 ha. Even though I don't understand, I still want to laugh at you. Yanzhika replied to Lu Cheng's grievance about the pork ribs. Lu Cheng tilted his head and replied with an emoji of biting a handkerchief. I came here with such high hopes and expectations, but you? Alright. Let's go to the supermarket and buy the best ones. Yanzhika replied with a snickering emoji. Why do I feel like you're still gloating? Lu Cheng replied with an emoji of touching his chin. Don't mind the details. Yanzhika replied with an emoji of a flash of light in her eyes. Just like that, Lu Cheng flirted with Kuan QQ while chatting with his father, Lu Jisheng. He also helped his mother, Qi Fang, while waiting for dinner to come. When it was almost 7 o'clock, Lu Cheng picked up a piece of pork rib, dipped it in sauce, and chewed it off with his excellent teeth. What a delicious pork rib. Why did Mom dislike it? Lu Jisheng thought of something. He put down his chopsticks and took a sip of wine. Chung, you may have to go back to your hometown to worship your ancestors in a few days. Go back to your hometown to worship your ancestors. Lu Cheng was confused. What did he mean by going back to his hometown? Weren't Grandpa's parents buried in the Zhaoyushan cemetery in the north of the city? Didn't he sweep the graves during the summer vacation? Lu Jisheng looked at his son's expression and chuckled. Go back to your hometown to worship your ancestors? Ah, you haven't been there before. It's in Qingfu, Lining City, Qingfu County. Lu Cheng suddenly understood. Oh, Grandpa's hometown. He didn't think of it as his hometown at all. He was born in Xioshan and grew up in Xioshan. He spent his first 18 years in Xioshan. Xioshan was his real and spiritual hometown. The Lu family was not native to Xioshan. Lu Debong was born in Qingfu County, Lining City, next door. When he was 20 years old, he came to the factory in Xioshan City to recruit workers. From then on, he settled down and started a family. Later, he even brought his parents here. By the time Lu Cheng was born, his great-grandparents had passed away and were buried in the local area. He rarely visited his relatives and neighbors in Qingfu. Lu Debong had gone back to Qingfu twice in the years before, and after his retirement. Later, when he got older, he didn't want to travel anymore. That's right. Your grandfather has been dreaming about his childhood a few times recently. He feels like his ancestors are reminding him that it's time to pay his respects. Haha, homesickness. Besides, you're successful now. He definitely wants to pay his respects. Lu Jisheng shook his chopsticks. If I don't settle down in Xioshan in the future, will I often remember and dream of this place when I'm old? Lu Cheng was touched by her words and asked himself this question. He felt that the answer was yes, unless he could cut off his entire childhood and most of his teenage years. He could forget those difficult but definitely beautiful times. But now, even if he went out to study for half a year, he would often miss home in Xioshan. Well, I really don't have any impression of Qingfu. I'll just take it as a 2-day trip with my grandparents. Lu Cheng shook his head and smiled. He was completely in the dark about his relatives and the situation over there. Qi Fang ate a piece of winter melon and sneered. Your dad doesn't have any impression of it either. He only went back 4 or 5 times. The last time he went back was not long after we got married. Yeah, I only remember there was a river and a grave mountain. When I gave birth to you, I said I would take you back. But I forgot when I was busy. Lu Jisheng chuckled. I heard that they are talking about revising the genealogy. Every family has to pay a lot of money. If they don't pay, they won't let them enter the genealogy. Haha, what kind of society are we living in now? What does it matter if we don't enter the genealogy? He just wants to cheat money. Qi Fang rambled on. Well, the old people really like that. Lu Jisheng didn't care much. So many years had passed since he didn't have a genealogy. Lu Cheng listened to them like he was listening to gossip. He planned to search for food or specialties in Qingfu and bring some for his little fairy. If he couldn't, he would try it and take her for a trip. Thinking of this, he was curious about his grandfather's hometown. Lu Qing ate a mouthful of rice and wondered. Is the whole family going? There are so many people. It will be troublesome to buy tickets. It should be the whole family. Just rent a few cars and the driver's food and accommodation. Lu Jisheng said slowly. It was obvious that the Lu family had discussed it several times. Okay then. Lu Qing was relieved and didn't worry about it anymore. At that time, he would just be an accompanying member of the younger generation. He just needed to eat and drink and worship the ancestors. There was no need to worry. After talking about the ancestral worship for a while, Lu Jisheng's phone vibrated several times. He picked it up and said to Qi Fong with a smile. Old Zhao asked us to have tea and play cards this weekend. Okay. Qi Fong agreed readily. She looked up at Lu Qing and said, Your Uncle Zhao has been saying that the two families should get together. Since you are on holiday, why don't you come with us this weekend? Uncle Zhao? Lu Qing was a little confused. Who is this? Why can't I remember him? Lu Jisheng took a sip of wine and said with a smile. Haven't you met him? Zhao Zijuan, your dad's childhood friend. His daughter and your brother went on a blind date. Hey, the blind date didn't work out, but we are friends again. Maybe he will be introduced to his girlfriend. Not bad, very practical. Lu Qing smiled and joked. Then take them to Xiushan scenic spots. Climb the mountains, visit the temples and Taoist temples. When you come back, show them your specialty and take them to eat and drink. That's it. Jiang Fei asked for confirmation. It's only 2 days. What else do you want? Lu Qing laughed and said. They are probably here for the scenic spots. That's true. Jiang Fei finally made up his mind. The next morning, Lu Qing and Yin Zhika finished their morning exercises and ate breakfast that they had missed for a long time. Because Yin Zhika had family activities, they parted at the entrance of her neighborhood at 8:30 a.m. Back home, Lu Qing said that he would accompany his mother to do some decorations to fulfill his filial piety. Unfortunately, there was no one in the house. Those who worked had gone to work, and those who were busy had gone to work. I'm the only one who has nothing to do. Lu Qing laughed at himself. After thinking for a while, he changed his clothes, took the key, the medicine soup and other things and went to Gushan Martial Arts School. He planned to use the strength training gymnasium and the venue to continue his training. In addition, he heard from Qin Rui that the Xiushan preliminaries team would have a friendly competition with the Tiangao City preliminaries team in the morning in Gushan Martial Arts School to prepare for the preliminaries after the new year. He could take this opportunity to watch. The entrance of Gushan Martial Arts School was very quiet. The girls at the front desk were looking inside, as if they were expecting something. Lu Qing didn't greet them and walked in slowly. He saw that several partitions had been removed and a standard competition field was set up in the middle. The disciples of the martial arts school and other spectators sat cross-legged around it, whispering to each other as they watched the fight. Lu Qing bent down and casually patted someone's shoulder, asking him to squeeze to the side to make room for him. That person turned his head and looked at him. At first he was at a loss, but then he showed a look of surprise. Lu Qing didn't know who he was. He smiled and put a finger to his lips, telling him not to be excited and not to make a sound. Chapter 351. Seeing Lu Cheng's action, the excited and pleasantly surprised person immediately shut his mouth and swallowed the word brother. He nodded repeatedly to show that he understood, and moved to the side to make space for Lu Cheng. Lu Cheng greeted him with a smile, took a step forward, and smoothly sat down cross-legged. He looked at the field and happened to see Qin Rui fighting with a fighter of professional ninth pin. Crisp and muffled sounds echoed from time to time. Brother Lu, when did you come back? The person next to him asked in a low voice, as if he was doing something secretive. Lu Qing turned his head and looked at the ordinary-looking person, but he couldn't remember who he was. He could only smile and say, I just arrived yesterday. I wanted to borrow the strength training gym. There was a competition, so I thought I'd take a look. He lifted the bag in his hand as proof. Oh. The person next to Qin Haodong was stunned. Looking at the confrontation in the field, he said with obvious envy, Senior brother Qin's strength has improved so fast after he succeeded in meditation. In such a short time, his strength is already close to that of a professional ninth pin. His body condition is very good. If he can make up for the shortcoming of visualization, he'll definitely improve quickly. Lu Qing smiled with satisfaction. Since July, when he had given pointers and corrected Qin Rui's meditative state, after 4 months of training and repeated victories over anxiety and frustration, he had finally succeeded in meditating, crossing a very important threshold and obstacle on the path of martial arts. When visualization could be used in actual combat, with his 1.9 meters thick body, long arms and legs, and outstanding strength, it would be relatively easy for him to become a professional ninth pin. The person next to him nodded and said with a flattering smile, "Senior brother Qin can't be compared to you. Will you work part-time in the martial arts club this time?" I want to book a time for personal instruction." If it was yesterday morning, Lu Qing might have agreed. But now he just smiled and said, "There are too many things to do during the winter vacation. I don't have time for part-time work. If you have any questions, it's better to ask Qin Rui directly. If you can't solve it, I'll come over when I'm free after training. There's no need to make it so formal." Last night, he sent his opinion on the modification of the contract to Wu Qinggui, and waited for him to confirm it when he came back from his business trip. Good. The person beside him nodded happily. He also knew that it was impossible for Lu Qing, who had entered the 6th pin, to work part-time in the martial arts club. Martial artists who were not rich could not afford to be taught by masters of this level alone. In the center of the field, Qin Rui was fully displaying his strength. He was locked in a battle with the warrior with a mustache. The referee was an old man with gray hair and deep wrinkles. He should be a senior who retired to Xiushan. The scenery in Xiushan was beautiful, and the air quality was good. Many local martial artists would come back from time to time to stay for a while when they were old. Amidst the crisp sound, Qin Rui seized an opportunity. Relying on the advantage of his figure, he barely won a move against his opponent. "Great!" Lu Qing applauded and cheered, just like the other disciples and students of the martial arts club. This was what the so-called melon-eating crowd was like. Yes, Qin Rui's improvement was indeed great, worthy of applause. Qin Rui shook his fist with satisfaction, and then saluted to his supporters. He walked to the other side and sat beside Monk Wenguang, accepting his comments and guidance in a low voice. The next round was between Jiang Shuiyan from Tiangao City and Zhou Xingyao from Xiushan. Both of them were close to the level of professional ninth pin. Once again, they were evenly matched. At the climax of the battle, Jiang Shuiyan suddenly broke out and made a series of fierce and smooth attacks. She forced Zhou Xingyao to the edge and won the match. "Great!" Lu Qing applauded again. She was able to perfectly combine fierce and smooth attacks with the control of her body refining state. It was enough to show that she had a good foundation in martial arts. This time, his cheers were no longer as silent as before. Instead, they were abruptly interrupted by the quiet and regretful reaction of the supporters of the martial arts club. His voice clearly echoed around the venue, attracting the attention of many people. Jiang Shuiyan was the first to look over. She was surprised that the audience of Xiushan City would applaud for her. The audience here was not the usual kind. They were either disciples and students of the martial arts club or friends and relatives of the contestants. They were the kind of people who would definitely side with their friends and relatives. It was very difficult for them to cheer for the opponent. When their eyes met, she saw a young man who was not very good-looking but clean and pleasing to the eye. She nodded to him happily, thanking him for his honesty and frankness. Lu Qing smiled and applauded in response. "Not bad. The atmosphere in Xiushan City is very good. That young man is very straightforward and honest. I like." The martial artists of Tiangao City's preliminaries looked over and whispered to each other happily and excitedly. The disciples and students of the martial arts club were quite surprised. They looked over and saw a familiar figure. All the words in their mouths were swallowed back. "Lu Qing? He's back." Chairman Wei Renjie and Qin Rui were surprised at first, then delighted. However, their reactions were drowned out by the sound of the referee announcing the start of the next round. Qin Rui stood up in the midst of the fierce fight. He walked to Lu Cheng's side from behind and squeezed in. He smiled and said, "You didn't say you were coming yesterday. My mom abandoned me. I had to come and join in the fun and borrow the strength training gym." Lu Cheng answered casually. He chuckled and said, "A scholar who has been away for 3 days must be looked at with new eyes. I was a little surprised just now." "Hee, thanks for your guidance. Master Wenguang is also very helpful," Qin Rui said modestly, unable to hide his self-satisfaction. Lu Cheng put his hands on his knees and watched the match seriously. He said, "When it comes to martial arts, it's ultimately up to you. If a cow doesn't drink water, it's useless to force it. Not bad. You can fight for the professional 9th pin certificate in April. Oh right, how many exchanges are you going to fight?" He just asked casually. Chairman means to fight about 10 rounds and try to fight with the teams from the surrounding cities, so that everyone can gain more practical experience. Next up is Fenhu City's preliminaries team and Lenning City's bat team. This team is very strong. They have a Dan stage fighter, and made it to the 2nd stage of the preliminaries last year. Unfortunately, compared to the teams from the provinces with strong martial arts, they're much weaker and didn't make it to the next stage. Qin Rui said excitedly. Okay. Lu Cheng didn't pay much attention, and just took it as a casual chat. The exchange was different from the official competition. This time, there were a total of 8 rounds. The main force and substitutes of both sides were given the opportunity to fight in pairs. No matter who won or lost, they would leave the arena. At 10:30, the exchange ended. Xioshan City got a good score of 5-3. Wei Renjie was very happy. He talked for a long time with the coach of Tiangao City and invited them to lunch. When the team of Tiangao City entered the locker room to take a shower and rest, he and Monk Wenguang turned to Lu Cheng and said warmly, "Lu, do you want to have lunch together?" "Chairman, there's no need. There are too many people and I don't know them well. It's boring." Lu Cheng expressed his thoughts frankly. "Okay, I'll treat you to a good meal later." Wei Renjie was not angered by his rejection. Instead, he chuckled and said, "Initially, I wanted to advise you to participate in a few preliminaries to ensure everyone's safety, but you've improved too quickly. I'm too embarrassed to ask you again. A rank 6 martial artist participating in the preliminaries, isn't that bullying?" Ba. Benefactor Wei is right. A 6th pin fighter can be the main force in the North-South regional competition. He can even be a substitute in the advancement competition. Monk Wenguang looked at Lu Cheng with a warm smile and sized him up from head to toe. The preliminaries were the 4th level of professional competition, the lowest level. The 3rd level was called the North-South Regional Preparatory Competition. In this level, the clubs or teams of the upper-middle level usually had a high-ranked inhuman Dan stage fighter as the main force and a 6th pin or 7th pin fighter as the main force. In the 2nd level of the advancement competition, the forces of the upper-middle level had no or only one physical invulnerability expert. They had an inhuman as the main force and a 6th pin or 7th pin fighter as the substitute. In other words, even if Lu Cheng graduated now, he wouldn't have to worry about not having a place to stay. Lu Cheng was a little scared by Monk Wenguang's weird look. He laughed dryly and said, "I'd better focus on the university martial arts competition first." After a few words of greeting, he said goodbye and went upstairs to the strength training gymnasium. Qin Rui followed him and asked with concern, "What are you going to do for lunch? Do you want me to pack something for you?" No, I'll just have a meal nearby. I still have to continue my training later." Lu Cheng shook his hand. "You still have training in the afternoon?" Qin Rui asked in surprise. "It's fine anyway." Lu Cheng sighed and laughed in a low voice. Peng Liyun is not that easy to catch up with. Qin Rui listened in a daze. Watching Lu Cheng's back disappear at the entrance of the stairs, he suddenly felt that his previous complacency was not worth mentioning. Cheng is already sprinting to the top of his age group in the country. He's really not in the same world as us. In the locker room, Jiang Shuiyan came out of the shower. While drying her hair with a dry towel, she was typing on her phone. "Sister Shuiyan, you fought really well today." Huang Bing, the substitute player, gave her a thumbs up. Yeah, the audience in Xioshan was shocked. They even applauded you. Tan Digao, the main force player, echoed. The audience laughed and cheered, making Jiang Shuiyan both happy and embarrassed. She said modestly, "That guy probably applauded because he thought I was pretty good looking." At this point, her heart skipped a beat. She frowned slightly and said hesitantly, "Why do I feel that guy is a little familiar?" Familiar? Tan Digao and Huang Bing were lost in their memories. The more they thought about it, the more they felt that they had seen that guy applauding somewhere before. After a dozen seconds, Huang Bing suddenly opened his eyes wide. He matched that guy with a figure in his memory and blurted out, "Lu Lucheng." For martial arts fans and TV viewers, once the craze passed, they would soon forget the champion of the provincial youth tournament. Without continuous promotion, they would at most have an impression of him. But in the martial arts circle of the province, he was definitely a figure that could not be ignored. Lu Cheng? Hearing Huang Bing's words, the figure in Jiang Shuiyan's mind suddenly became clear. She said in surprise and joy, "It's him. Yes, it's him. It's really him. He actually watched such a low-level competition." Lu Cheng, Tan Digao and the others looked at each other to confirm. They couldn't help but be silent for a while. After a long time, Tan Digao said with emotion, "Shuiyan, even Lu Cheng applauded for you. You don't have to be so modest." Jiang Shuiyan raised her head slightly and couldn't help but smile. "You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."